Well, it's my privilege now to be able to welcome on board those who are watching the live stream of our championship events, and this is quite a great innovation. And for those who may be tuning in at home on their computers, on their television sets, we've got a great 2.5 days racing up ahead of you, and a spectacular opening to the championship events, and we've got 4 heats coming up. We've been speaking about them on our PA system here at the site, but for those sitting at home watching the stream, Barry, a brief summary of what's happening and why those 4 opening races are going to be so spectacular.
Well, with 4 heats, John, in just about every heat there would be 8 or 9 scullers competing there. In each of those heats, at least 5 of the scullers themselves are from the National Training Centre. So that the placings and the progress from Heat 1, they will move through to the semi-finals. The rest are eliminated. First, second, third and fourth are to move through, John, to the semi-finals, and the remainder eliminated. Now, in the first of the heats, I think we've got 5 from the National Training Centre. Who will be from the National Training Centre eliminated? And the same question comes up in heats 2, 3 and 4.
Yes.
Now, some of those names there that we see, for instance, the first lineup there, Alex Hill racing out of lane number 3 in the Championship Men's Elite Single Scull. He's in heat number 1. You might recall Hill rode with, in the, I think it was in the men's 4, gold medalist, Alex Hill, raced with, was it Spencer Churin? Josh Hicks was in the boat.
In fact, gold medalist at the World Championship 2 years in a row, Barry.
Exactly, John. So that's a sample of what we'll see. That's just heat 1. And I don't think they're in the blocks at the present moment, but John, you summarised in one. This would be the greatest introduction to a New South Wales championship that, and we've been together for years now, that we've ever seen.
I think so. Superb racing, and it is part of the selection program for our national crew for the approaching season, the World Cup regattas and the World Championships. So a lot depends on racing here today, Barry.
Well, we're going to see a lot of green shirts over there out with their laptops and taking the times for these, because this is a big one for the boys. There have been occasions when we've had the state championships when we didn't even see the National Training Centre boys. I think they were more involved down at Canberra.
That's whereas we've seen the girls much more frequently being here at Penrith. But just a little aside, you mentioned Alex Hill, a member of the winning gold medalist 4 at the World Championships. A little aside, Alex teamed up with some of his mates from Sydney Rowing Club. So they had 7 Sydney Rowing Club and 1 Alex Hill from Adelaide Rowing Club to make a composite which wiped the field at the head of the Yarra this year.
And a great race down there, and most people up here today, they come from every state. If you have a look at the entries, West Australia, South Australia, big contingent from Victoria, from Queensland as we normally see. But that's a great race down at the Yarra. Great race down at the Yarra, and Sydney did extremely well. Sydney on top of rowing here in New South Wales at the present moment, done a great job. Yes, so it looks good for New South Wales rowing coming up in the state versus state racing, which are on at the Australian Championships in a couple of weeks' time, John.
And the other factor, of course, Barry, is that this is not only club rowing, this is championship for school rowing too. So we'll have the premier boys and girls schools, not only New South Wales, but right across the continent.
Well, we saw a couple of the school crews out there this morning on the river, and what a great standard. I mean, they're different styles that we've seen, but plenty of talent in those boats coming up. And one of the things, if you have a look, I noticed that in the women's racing, we mentioned the men, but in the women's racing, Adair Ferguson, does the name ring a bell to you?
It does indeed, but I haven't heard it for a while.
Well, back in the 80s, I think it was, back in the 80s, she represented Australia in the single sculls at the World Championships. I think she got, if she didn't win it and become the lightweight World Championship in the sculls, she got a silver. And she's racing today in, I think, in a double or a pair championship up against the National Training Centre girls.
It could be very interesting. But we're about to have a start in our first race of the day. It'll be the first of these 4 spectacular sculling events about which Barry has been speaking. It's Heat 1 of the men's elite single scull. And as Barry mentioned, 1, 2, 3 and 4 direct to the semi-final. Others proceed no further. In lane 1 from Sydney University, Jack O'Brien. Lane 2 from Banks, Angus Thornton. Lane 3 from Adelaide and the NTC, Alexander Hill. Lane 4, Sydney and NTC, Joshua Hicks. Lane 5, Sydney University and the National Training Centre, Campbell Watts. Lane 6 from Swan River and the West Australian Institute of Sport, Sam Marsh. Lane 7, Sydney and the National Training Centre, Spencer Turren. Lane 8 from UTS and again the NTC, James Medway. And then in lane 9, that's the Grandstand 9, Andrew Lau from Drummoyne. A great race to come up. But the big question, Barry, with 4 to the final, as you've already said, who is not going to get there?
Well, it'll probably have to be one of the National Training Centre guys, but you never know with O'Brien from Sydney University and Thornton from Banks. They could pull off a blinder here. Those 2 men are over on the far side of the course, as John said, in lanes 1 and 2. And I think we've got to start, John. They've just taken off in the first heat of the day in the New South Wales Championships, day 1, the Championship Men's Elite Single Scull, and they're off and running.
Well, Barry, just an interesting, one of the rowers not mentioned in the NTC contingent, Andrew Lau from Drummoyne, but look at the coach.
Robin McNee.
Right there, yes. So be interesting to see how that
I think it's wonderful.
goes together.
Well, we can have a look and see what's happening there. You'll notice on the screenshots we're looking from the start, and as you can see, the scullers now are making their way from the start. They've covered probably the first 350 metres, and be interesting to see if we get a bead on them as they go through the first 500. Now, good start coming from all the scullers, and as you can see, a wonderful view from the back of the race. Still different, they're all up and very even, as they say in the classics, bow ball to bow ball in the first 350. And you might be able to pick up the marker there coming up to the first 500 metres. It's on the far bank and just in the corner. Now, as you can see them coming down towards us here at the, I think it's at the finishing line. You might get a handle. I think Hill from Adelaide on the far side of the course doing a great job there, along with Hicks representing Sydney Rowing Club. Now, a wonderful innovation. It's been in for a couple of years. It used to be that in describing the scullers as they came down, if they were representing the Academy of Sport, it only showed up as the Academy of Sport. But full credit to the organisers here today and the Regatta organisers that it does recognise the club from which they are sourced.
Well, Barry, there's the progress at the moment at the 500 metre mark. Alexander Hill leading Spencer Turren, then Campbell Watson, Andrew Lau, then in order James Medway, Angus Thornton, Jack O'Brien, and Andrew Lau again. He's rowing twice. Now that's interesting. Well done, Andrew.
Well, it's a bit confusing, but look, thanks once again to the volunteers down there in the huts as they move through. Well, thankfully, we may have volunteers in the various huts. If you can, you may be able to see as they come down the timing huts, which are located on the tower side of the course, and that's where the timing people are allocated. They read the crews or the scullers as they move through, and they communicate with the technical people down here in the tower, which is the level below us. There are judges down there, all volunteers that do a magnificent job, and there's a wonderful shot, as you can see, those from heat number 2 starting to make their way down towards the start. Well, there we have coming down, as John said, Hill over on the far side of the course. He's 3 out from the far side. On the far side, you've got O'Brien falling a little way back now, and as you'd expect, and Thornton's with him. But you can see now the leading light from the National Training Centre scullers is Alex Hill. and they're starting to come into good play now. All those scullers, it's interesting enough, very close together, whether the tactics start at the 1,000 metre mark, and shortly you'll be getting the feedback on what has happened at the 1,000 metre mark. But Hill's certainly up there, and a good row coming from Campbell Watts from Sydney University, and I think running fourth in the early stages was James Medway from UTS. A good row from Medway. He's not up there with the leading scullers, but a very good row for Medway. Been out of action for 1 or 2 years now. Dad's, I think, in the dental business, but his sister competed under a scholarship over in the United States and was very successful over there. But it's, I think Hill is holding that very slender lead, but you can now see a break as we go across. The leading scullers, Hill, Watts, Marsh, our current under-23 state, New South Wales state champion, but he represents the Western Australian Institute of Sport here. And Robin being up there, he could well be in the top 4. Isn't it close? All National Training Centre scullers.
This is going to be a tight race, Barry. Alex Hill's applying the pressure at the moment, but none of the others are totally out of contention. They'll want to make a move in a hurry.
Hill's impressive. Look at the length he's getting out there. He's striving through that. Alex Hill representing Adelaide and the National Training Centre.
And in lane 8 from Mercantile, Edward Northrop.
Well, third across, John, you mentioned his name. That's David Watts from the Sydney. He was in that the Australian quad that won gold at the World Championships. A spectacular win. They're coached by Wright, Prater, Randell. And of course, when Watts was in the crew at the World Championships, he was accompanied by Luke Letcher, that you mentioned, from down in Canberra. And also, I think it was Hamish Playfair was in the crew, and you can add Antill to that, and I think Antill's racing along with the scullers out of the men's 8 that won the silver. So Antill's not there, but what a lineup there. These young men, the Australian crew that won the gold in the quad racing at the World Championships. So they find themselves now up. This is spectacular. This is, you never see this. This is a selection race, absolutely fantastic to see. You might see it in a time trial or something like that in the Nepean River, but never in a race. The selectors have done a good job by getting them.
I'd be interested to see if this lineup is replicated in the sculls in the National Championship in 4 weeks' time, Barry.
Well, the second, I think there's that, the Mercantile sculler in lane 8, that's Edward Northrop, a little way back. Next to him, it's Hamish. I think Hamish Playfair used to be with New South Wales Rowing on the administration of that. He's representing UTS and the National Training Centre. Well up there, I think, the leading scullers. And if we have a look across, the third one out, also from Sydney, I think that could be David Watts. I think that's David Watts from Sydney Rowing Club. Then you've got Forsterling from Melbourne University, a little way back, but our leading scullers coming down here, a great row, Hamish Playfair on this side, and the other of the Sydney scullers over there wearing the colours of Sydney Rowing Club, David Watts. But in the centre, 3 out from this side, I think that's Luke Letcher.
In the red, black mountain colours.
That's Luke.
Lifting his rating him out, Barry. He realises he's got to, if he's got to get in that top 4.
Well, I think the president of the ACT rowing down there at Canberra Rowing was his coach there for some...
In school days,
yes. In school days, yeah. So it's he'd be very, very happy with what he's seeing out there. So across from Letcher, of course, that's the Sydney sculler, Alex Purnell, also Australian representatives. In fact, the bulk of these are Australian representatives. Very impressive row coming from Watts over there, wearing the colour coached by Wright, Prater and Randell once again, the National Training Centre. And here we come, the Hamish Playfair up there with the winners. I think Hamish is starting to feel the pinch a little bit now, but he will be in the top 4. Progression exactly the same as in 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through. It goes through to Watts, be first. Second place then will go to, I think that's Black Mountains Letcher. Third place will go to Playfair, I think. And we'll just check the 4th place, and that will go to Purnell.
Purnell, yes.
Alex Purnell. Well, there they are, the top champion or the top competitors. They're going through to the final, or semi-final rather, of the Championship Men's Elite Single Scull. The race coincident by, gee, I hope there's not a bad port in, Ambulance Service Australia.
Barry setting itself up for a good final. The different than a second behind the first race, 7:01.55.
You won't find that in many of the fantastic.
Yeah. Looking at Heat 3, again sponsored by the Ambulance Service Australia, in lane 1 from Mercantile and the Liam Donald. From Tamar in Tasmania, Henry Yule, a very good Tasmanian name, the Yule. In lane 3, UTS TC, Tim Masters. From Sydney University Boats Club and the NTC in lane 4, Cameron Girdlestone. The Mercantile and NTC representative Angus Whitcomb in lane 6. From Mossman and the NTC in 7, and Jacob Bicknell, Sydney University in lane 8.
Well, John from the Mercantile Club right over there in lane 1, I think he was in the Australian 8 and won silver in a spectacular race at the World Championships on a fractions of a second behind the top favoured German crew. And I think he's racing later today from Tamar with Coombs, I think in a pair from Tasmania. But then we come to the National Training Centre. Tim Masters was in the Australian 8. Cam Girdlestone, previous Australian medalist in the double sculls. Joshua Booth was in the silver medaling 8, and he's in lane number 5. And then you've got Whitcomb, also from the Australian 8, and Robert Black, who stroked the Australian 8, and I think Black is the second from this side. Is that right, John?
He is indeed.
From Mossman Rowing Club.
Yes.
And then you've got Jacob Bicknell from Sydney University, a little way back as we saw in the heats. And I think it's very brave of the Bicknells of this life and the Henry Yule over there in lane 2 to line up with this lineup of National Training Centre men. Well, good race coming down here, as you can see, and a good run coming from Robert Black. And when you think that we all watched the replays or watched it live from the World Championships going back, and I think Sarah Cook was giving the description there, and Sarah Cook should be with us this weekend, John, if we can get her up into the tower. Yes. Sarah Cook, I think, what would you call it? She's an honorary steward now at Henley.
Royal Henley, one of only 2 Australian stewards.
And she's leading commentator over there. She did a wonderful job at the World Championships, and she'll be very impressed by what she sees now. Let's hope she's also impressed by what she hears now, John.
Well, a very close finish here, Barry. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the final. They're pretty obvious who they are at this stage.
Well, you can see in the light-coloured or white-coloured singlet coming up here now. Whilst right alongside him is lane 4, I think this is Josh Booth, Australian representative extraordinaire, and he'll take out the win. So we've got our first place. Next to him will be Cam Girdlestone. We haven't seen Cam for a while. But lane 4, Cam Girdlestone will be in second place. A good race going on for 3rd and 4th here, but I think it will go over there. Well, who would know? I think he might have just got there. But anyway, Robert Black will gain probably 3rd alongside the... from Tamar, that's Henry Yule. So a good race from Tamar.
He did very
Henry
well
Yule
indeed.
Up there. Well, I don't know whether he's being judged. I think they'll have a photo for that. But it looked from here. It doesn't really matter because those top 4 will move through to the semi-final.
And again, a very similar time, 7:03.49.
So roughly about 3.03 of a second. Is that right?
That's it, yes. So it's
3 seconds.
7:03.49.
Yeah.
A couple of seconds slower
Yeah.
than the furthest 2 heaps.
Yeah.
But Heat 4, the final of these spectacular star-studded sculling heats, again sponsored by Ambulance Service Australia.
Well,
Nathan Bowden from Sydney's in lane 1, Jack Cleary, Western Australian Rowing Club and NCT in lane 2, Angus Moore from Sydney and the NTC in 3, Nicholas Purnell, Sydney University, NTC in 4, Simon Keenan, Melbourne Uni and NTC in 5, Caleb Antle, ANU and NTC in Lane 6, David Bartolo from Sydney University, and NTC. In 7, Ben Coombs from UTS on the grandstand side.
Well, at heat number 4, of course, we should remember that many of the New South Wales sourced National Training Centre people are contained in that King's Cup squad, will be in the state versus state, and likewise I would imagine those from perhaps Melbourne in the National Training Centre squad, and particularly from Victoria like Angus Whitcomb, we could find them also in the Victorian State 8. So it augurs well for the Australian Championships coming up here now. But as John suggested, the number of, I think we've got about 5 National Training Centre scullers, 5 or 6. Jack Cleary that John mentioned, but I think, and just looking at the names down there, the Angus Moore, of course, we know Angus, the grandson of John, came out of that Australian 8 again. And then we go through Nick Purnell, same crew, Simon Keenan out of lane 5. I think he was in the Australian 8 as well. Caleb Antill was the name I mentioned going back to Heat 1. He was from the gold medal crew of the men's quad at the World Championships. So he's a one out there because we've now accommodated all the silver medal 8. And Caleb Antill and David Bartolo from Sydney University, second from the grandstand. And as you can see, and probably making his way in the top 4. And then Ben Coombs from UTS, a little way built. But good luck to Ben coming up, and coached by Tim McLaren, whom everyone would know. So on the far sides, we've got the good efforts coming from Nathan Bowden of Sydney Rowing Club. In the red alongside him, I think that's Jack Cleary. And then on this flank, you've got Ben Coombs, coached by Tim McLaren. Now we concentrate on the top 4 coming through now, and it looks like we've got Mercantile's Angus Whitcomb in the blue sash.
Lane 6, Caleb Antill.
It's Caleb Antill taking the win. And second place then we've got Purnell. And then back to Keenan of Melbourne University, back for third. And then fourth place will go to Bartolo from Sydney University out of lane 7. They're the top 4.
And the time for that, a little slower than the other 3 heats, but nevertheless a good time, 7:07.01. Well, that was a spectacular start, those opening 4 races of the New South Wales Rowing Championship for this year. And it's got our afternoon program away to an excellent start, but we're staying with the single scull classification. Race 5 underway now, and it is sponsored by Fluid Sign Australia, champion women's under-19 single scull. It's the first heat, 1, 2 and 3 only in this, 1, 2, 3. Direct to the final, which will be raced on race 45. The rest eliminated. And on the water, Anne Wasson from Pine Rivers in lane 1. Laura Chancellor from Toowong and QAS in 2. Niamh Graham from Sydney in 3. Amy Taylor, Griffith University, Surfers Paradise in 4. In lane 5, it's Clara Sams from the Lower Clarence Club. Very active rowing centre up there on the north coast. Amelia Stennett is in lane 6, representing Port Macquarie. In lane 7 from Melbourne, Sophie Scott. And in lane 8, again from Griffith University, Olivia Georgimanopoulos.
Well, this is one of those races, John, where last year in the women's under-19 single scull, all the young ladies from interstate did extremely well. I think they overwhelmed the New South Wales starters there in the New South Wales Championships. But I'm looking at that young sculler over there in lane number 2, representing Tuong and the Queensland Academy of Sport. That name rings a bell, and that's Laura. Is that Laura Chancellor?
Chancellor, yes.
Yeah. Now I think she gained. A silver medal in second place in the championship, New South Wales Women's Under 19 2018 Sculls Championship Sculls. So she's racing here, and she'd have to be one of the race favourites if she got a second last year. But look at the names. You've got Liam Graham from Sydney, of course. He's a great young sculler over there. But you've got Surfers Paradise. You went through the names: Clarence, Port Macquarie, Melbourne, and Griffith Uni. You can see they come from far and wide, John.
Yeah, a very wide dissemination, which is great. It is a state championship, so the wider we have entries, the better for the championship proper. But a good battle, Barry, going on here between lane 7 and 8. That's Sophie Scott from Melbourne and Olivia Georgilopoulos from Griffith University. They're on the grandstand side. Good tussle there.
Well, she's doing particularly well, and if you have a look on the far side there, I think second from that, I think that's Laura Chancellor, right up there with her, and of course the middle of the section that we see well back. But you're quite right, John, a very good race coming out of Sophie Scott, coached by David O'Shea from Melbourne. I'm just looking at the relative rates down there. In fact, they're a little bit of a rate change coming from Chancellor from Tuong on the far side. She's supported by the Queensland Academy of Sport, and she seems to be a little bit higher. She's probably about a canvas behind the young sculler that you nominated there, Sophie Scott. Scott starting now to bring up her rate. I saw a glance across there about 50 metres ago at the far side, so she's right up with what's happening on the far side of the course. In this event, it's only first, second and third that move through to the final. First, second and third. The remainder are eliminated. So the race really on for third place now at the rear of these two scullers coming down here, starting from right on the far side, and Wasson from Pine Rivers. Can she make it? And she's over there in the yellow boat. Then Sydney, Liam Graham stands a chance of bringing it up and being the third place sculler there. And on the far side, I think dropping back would be Olivia Georgilopoulos that John just mentioned from Griffith Uni Surfers Paradise. So it almost looks like we do have certainly the top 4 nominated now right on the far side. Wasson still trying to get into the mix, but I think we've seen a resurgence coming from lane 7, and Sophie Scott moving now into the top 3. 1, 2, 3 to move into the final, and first place it looks like it will go to Laura Chancellor, the silver medalist in the Under 19 Championship of New South Wales, about to go across the line. And then second place will go to Scott of Melbourne, followed by Graham from Sydney Rowing Club, and fourth place then will go to Wasson from Pine Rivers, and fifth place then to Olivia. You're very good at that name, John. Georgilopoulos is back in fifth place, and sixth place then will go to Taylor, Griffiths Uni Surfers Paradise, and seventh place then will go to Lower Clarence with Clara Sams. And one more still to be judged, and that's the young lady coming up here now from Port Macquarie, Amelia Stennett, coached by Alan McCartney.
Winning time by Laura Chancellor was 8:32.72. Now the second heat of this classification is underway. There's 3 in all, and we have in lane 1 from Coffs Harbour, Zoe Hillier. In lane 2 from Sydney, Ella Hudson. In lane 3 from Griffith Uni, Jade Mansell. In lane 4 from UTS, Laura Wunderlich. In lane 5 from Kinross Wollongong, Bridget Yeoman, a schoolgirl there. Good to see her competing in this event. Lane 6 from Footscray City, Louisa Bongrain. In lane 7 from Capital Lakes, Cara Beauregard. And in lane 7 from Toowong, Lucy Hope.
Well, John, I see young Bridget Yeomans from Kinross Rollery in the mix down there, and the coach down there, Sarah Cook, we mentioned her name previously, the Australian commentator, Henley Stewart, who did so well in the commentary and at international level in the last World Championships. All eyes on the performance of the young Sydney sculler there, Ella Hudson, coached by Carter Donovan-Check and Brendan Longman. She's second from the far side. Well up there, 1, 2, 3, only to move through to the final. And a good row coming from the sculler over here once again. Toowong sculler, not associated with the Queensland Academy of Sport as we saw with Laura Chancellor, but nevertheless representing Toowong, and that's Lucy Hope, currently our race leader in the second heat of the women's under-19 single sculls.
And Lucy Hope actually showing, I think, a very nice style, very controlled, Barry, not hurried, I think content to sit and take a place, but she's certainly well in front at this time.
Comfortably too, John. I noticed that the another name we mentioned, Ella Hudson, is really starting to work very hard over on the far side, has the rate up, and she's working so hard. When you see her compared with Hope on this side, one looks very relaxed, taking her time and long strokes. Ella will probably get into the top 3, but she's having to work hard to do it. And perhaps rowing a little short at this stage as we see through the water, but all girls fighting hard to get into that top 3, and we've seen a resurgence coming from Zoe Hillier, coached by Tim Wellsellen from Coffs Harbour, trying to get into the mix, and she might even do it with only these metres to go. Well, we'll think that it's as they come to the line, Hudson may get there.
Yes.
And takes the win, and it's on now really with the top 3, and it will go to Toowong Hope, and third place will go to, it looked like Jade Mansell from Griffith Uni Surfers Paradise, and the Coffs Harbour sculler Hillier just failing to make it. She did a superb finish there, but will not make the top 3.
And the winning time a little faster than the earlier heat, 8:25.69. But Heat 3 of the Championship Women's Under-16 Singles is underway. Again, sponsored by Fluid Sign Australia. Thank you to all our sponsors. And a reminder, 1, 2, 3 only. To the final in lane 1 from Capital Lakes, Aisling Doyle. In lane 3 from Griffith Uni, Andrea Bushett. In lane 4 from Drummoyne, Eve Timms. Lane 5, Toowong and QAS, Phoebe Robinson. Lane 6, Griffith Uni, Danica Free. In lane 7 from Newcastle Grammar, Elizabeth Carter. And from Sydney University, India Hobbs is in lane 8.
Well, a big name down there is the coach of the Griffith Uni Surfers Paradise number 3 sculler, Danica Free. And look at the name of the coach down there, John. Duncan Free.
Yes.
Australian representative, and has been for many years, and it's interesting to see his progeny now moving up through the championship group. But alongside Duncan Free is the coach down there, Liz Halsall, formerly of the UTS, and Liz, of course, herself, I think that was the name, Liz Halsall, was in fact the New South Wales representative in the state versus state sculls there about 3 seasons ago, 2 or 3 seasons ago.
I haven't seen her on the water much
recently.
No,
she obviously must have moved up that way. Who wouldn't want to move to Surfers Paradise, John?
Me. I don't want to live on the 64th floor of a unit.
Well, if you went up there, you'd be out in the surf most of the time.
Oh, Barry, you flatter me. Lying on the beach, perhaps.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, anyway, look, I think here they come, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's once again, this could be almost a clean sweep of the Toowong crew. This is another Queensland Academy of Sports sculler. I think that young sculler there It's hard to tell. I think
Yes,
she's got the other colours.
Phoebe Robinson in front at the 1500
Well, there
metre
you
barrier.
go.
About handsome in front, 12 seconds in front of Danica Free.
Yeah, Robinson from Toowong. And you wouldn't want to know. We look at the results that we've seen in the previous two heats, and you probably know that the Toowong Sculler got a second. That was Hope got a second, but moving through to the final. And then in the first of the heats, the former second place in the New South Wales Champion Chancellor from Toowong and the Queensland Academy of Sport taking out the win there in heat number 1. And here we have Phoebe Robinson in heat number 3, and she looks so far in front now in the yellow colours. It's also sponsored by the Queensland Academy of Sport. And off on her flanks, that's young Danica Free. We've made mention of Dad, the coach there, Duncan Free, Australian representative, and then coming off here, Liz Carter from Newcastle Grammar. The row coming from Liz Carter. Now here we start to see the rate a little bit low, and that goes back Robinson practicing that steady round the back turn finish that we see up here, as opposed to the very quick hands round the back turn. She has that relaxed, glides the boat.
Now that was a very relaxed row, Barry. I mean, there was no immediate pressure, some many seconds in front of the second place, which could be between those. Going to be a good race, 6 or 2.
I think it might be 6 with the run of the boat. That's Free. We'll get second place, and third place looks like it will go to Doyle over there. They're the top 3. And after Doyle, you've got Timms from Drummoyne. That's a nice little row from her, only 3 seconds behind, and then Carter from Newcastle Grammar. Yeah, so that was quite good. But those 2, 3, yes, John, as you said, you can see the difference in the styles in that last few metres. Very relaxed from Robinson.
Despite the fact it was a very relaxed win, that one, Barry, it's still about 5 seconds faster than the first heat. Winning time 8:20.09. And I'd say that Phoebe Robinson in the Toowong colours there has to be a real contender for the final, which is being rowed as race 45 a little later in the program. We're staying with our sculling events. These are heats, and this is the Championship Men's Under 19 Single Scull. In this category, it's 1, 2, 3 and 4 direct to the final, and the final will be race 46 on that program. And again, we thank Fluid Sign, our sponsor for this category. In lane 1, Harry Fox from Melbourne Uni. In lane 2, Miles Harold from Nepean. In lane 3, Hamish Henrique from West Australia Rowing Club and the West Australia Institute. In lane 4, Finlay Blake, Sydney Uni. In lane 5, Matthew Catania from Columbia Anglican School. In lane 6, Connor Hudson, Newcastle Grammar. Lane 7, George Blood, Carey Grammar from Victoria. In lane 8, Nora Hutzma from Corio Bay, also Victoria. And a local Penrith sculler in lane 9, Bradley Moran.
Yeah, there's a mix there. Lovely to see Nepean, the local clubs there. Nepean over there, second one from the far side, Miles Harold, coached by the Waddell brothers, and from Penrith, Brad Moran. Lovely to see them there too.
Barry, we mentioned Connor Hudson from Newcastle Grammar. I think I'm right in saying that at this state of the regatta season, Newcastle Grammar is in front in the point score.
Oh, that's right, John. Yeah, is that right? I might should have said it. Is that
I think
right?
it is. It's either Newcastle or Hunter Valley, I suspect, Newcastle, but I stand to be corrected on that.
I think those combinations of those schools might have done very well at the regattas that we've heard earlier on in the season, pre-Christmas.
And they featured at many of them,
Yes.
Barry, though down here mostly.
Yeah, we've had a lot of school regattas, certainly, club regattas that featured the schools. And this was a very good one last year, in the New South Wales Championships, a name that might be familiar to you. I think it was won by Cormac Kennedy Everett. I don't know whether he's racing here at this state championships, but he was the under-19 state champion.
He certainly is featured in some of our earlier regattas this season, Barry. Not sure if it's on the program later today. But for the race underway, 1500 metre, Hamish Honrigay from the west in front, and about 5.5 seconds in front of Harry Fox from Melbourne Uni.
So the first and second coming from the far side. A bad run coming from lane 8 down here now. Probably back in third place. This one is a little different from the women. We had 1, 2, 3 in the women's under-19 single scull going through to the final. This one is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there must be only the 2 heats in the men's under-19 single scull, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, 1, 2 and 3 look pretty clear here, Barry. It's going to be secret who's going to be number 4 and progress to that final at race 45.
John, may I dare to ask, as you're well up on this, St. Columba Anglican.
I think, I checked this out previously, I think they come from far north coast of New South Wales. I'll do some checking and check on that one, Barry, but I think that's where it is.
Well, here we come now in the great colours over there. You mentioned it was the West Australian colours, and there they are, West Australian Rowing Club, and sponsored by the West Australian Institute of Sport, Hamish, and I love the way you said that, Honrigay, is that right?
I would think so, yes.
And then second place right over there on the far side, that's Harry Fox. It's called by John from Melbourne University. He's their number 2 sculler, coached by Michael Poulter. He will take out second place. Good race going on now here for third. You can see the lane 8, Corio Bay, Noah Osma on this side of the course, but it looks like it might go the way of right in the centre there. That looks like the colours of Sydney University. No, it will go to 8, Corio Bay. Hootsma will take third place, and followed by Blake of Sydney University, and he will take out the fourth and move through to the final of the men's under-19 single scull, and that's race 46.
And the winning time 7:12.21. That's a pretty good time for an under-19 race, Barry.
Yeah, not too bad. Well, those races that we saw earlier on this morning, they were the times that you got for those early heats for the men's National Training Centre races, they were flat 7s.
They were.
So that's not bad.
And our final sculler, and that's from George Blood from Carey Grammar, one of the Melbourne schools, in race 8. But 9 is underway. It's the second heat, the men's under-19 singles. Harry Knott from Centenary in lane 1. Cameron Ogilvie Glebe in 2. Tom Anderson, Sydney Uni 3. Samuel Gray, Essendon 4. Jared Lord, Canterbury 5. Oliver Miller, Melbourne Uni in 6. Nick Blackman from Pembroke School, that's in South Australia, and the Institute of Sport there, in lane 7. Dylan Heel from St George's in lane 8, and Nakamai Stylanu from Sydney in lane 9.
Well, John, through the halfway mark, and that's not a bad time, a 3:43 going through that, but the young Nick Blackman from Pembroke School is moved up a notch and taken over the lead from Steliano, who was in first place at the 500 metres. So there's been quite a change going on in the second 500 leading up to the 1000, and I think back in fourth place was Lord from Canterbury, has now moved up into third place. So the third place, Essendon's Sam Gray has been pushed back. He's been pushed back to sixth place. Yeah, so there's been a few changes made down there, and the coming up to the 15 now 100 metre mark. Cam Ogilvie from Glebe, finding the going a bit tough down there, but great to see. In fact, we've seen over the last few weeks great performances by the Glebe Scullers down there, pushed by Brad Smith, their club captain. So Blackman continues to hold sway there. He's the third out from the grandstand, and looking at second place, well, as we saw at the 1,000 metre mark, it was Anderson out of lane number 3 on the far side, and there's a lot of work going on there between lanes 3, 4, 5 and 6, I think it is, and any one of those scullers could move up in this particular event. 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the final. This is the second heat of the men's under 19 single scull. And the race currently led by Blackman, as you can see on this side of the course, and it's anyone's guess who's second, third and fourth and fifth. I think we can see 4 scullers out there putting in a lot of work. Yeah, good performance coming on from just across from Blackman as the Melbourne University sculler, holding off a couple of challenges over there, but geez, he's getting good length. A little bit more brighter as the guy from Canterbury, Lloyd, but going across the line it will be Blackman from Pembroke School, taking the win by about 6 or 7 lengths, and looking across a very cagey run coming from Canterbury's Jared Lloyd. He looks across every stroke, and he'll take second place from Canterbury. Third place will go, I think, to lane 3, Anderson from Sydney University, and fourth place then will go to Essendon. That's the way we saw.
I think we might have a photo for third and fourth, Barry.
Yeah.
It was very, very close indeed. Winning time, incidentally, by Nick Blackman, 7:26.30. It is first 4 to the semi-final, or to the final rather, so really it doesn't matter the result of that particular photo. Those top 4 will all go direct to the final.
Yeah, well, we won't second guess the judges, but it looked like certainly Blackman going across there, and followed by Lord of Canterbury. Did a very good run in the last few hundred metres. And but it did look like Anderson from Sydney University might have just got there ahead of Gray, but as you say, John, it doesn't matter in the photo. The 4 of them will move through to the final.
Barry just mentioning the name of Leon Blackman, we noted we regret the passing of Leon Blackman, head of the river winners here in Sydney a long time ago, 1947, but a long-term rower with the Sydney Rowing Club. So we don't like seeing our rowers go on, but it does happen. Proceeding to the final will be Nick Blackman, Jared Lord, Tom Anderson and Samuel Gray. Our next singles heat is underway. This race is sponsored by Bentley, one of our big sponsors here for Rowing New South Wales. Women's 1 single with first 4 direct to the final. Jean Mitchell from Banks in lane 2. Alessa Macero, Melbourne in 3. Portia Gateskill from Sydney Uni in 4. Sky Frobel from Mercantile in 5. But from Sydney Uni 6. Leah Franklin from Swan River in the West in 7. And in lane 8 from University, Monique Bitsios.
Well, Mercantile Sculler Sky Frobel, we've seen her racing up here before. She'd be one to watch. Certainly Sky Frobel racing out of lane 5, and the last in 2018, the state champion ship, one of those few championships won by a New South Wales sculler. That was the under 21 single scull, won by, and I think she'd probably be racing here today in a more senior event, certainly age-wise, was Olivia Bartram, and a former New South Wales champion in this well, she still is the reigning under 21 single scull
Barry,
champion.
interesting to see the breeze is lifting, and we can see its front just moving gradually down the course toward the finishing line.
And at the same time, the flag's almost at standstill.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So we'll slight following conditions, preceding the scullers as they come down here. And through the 1500 metre mark, it was Swan River sculler. That's Leah Franklin was the sculler in the lead. She's
and I think remains
7.
in the lead now, Barry. I don't think there's anyone in a position to really challenge her at this stage, with about 150 metres to go.
Well, isn't it wonderful to see these young scullers in the under 21 category coming from right across from Victoria, particularly those from say Melbourne and Mercantile, the Sydney University contingent there, but from Swan River. That's our leading sculler, Lila Franklin. And a little way back, of course, it's Monique Brisios from Griffith Uni Surface Paradise. But here's a young lady, looks destined certainly for bigger and better things in the under 21 category. Leah Franklin, coached by Mark Beer. Strong finish, takes the goal or takes the win, and moves through to the final. Second place going to Gates Kell from Sydney University. Third place going to Mercantile's Frybol. And fourth place right alongside will be the Sydney University sculler. That's James Ford in fourth place. They're our finalists. And then in fifth place it will go to, I think that's the sculler from Banks, Jean Mitchell, taking fifth place. Sixth place then will go to Bitsios, coached by Lincoln Hangley out of Griffith Uni. In sixth place and seventh place then looks like that will go to the Melbourne sculler, Alicia Masiero, coached by David O'Shea. And
the winning time by Leah Franklin, 7:56.80. Now the second heat of this category, that is the under 21 women's singles, underway. Lillian Cathcart from Melbourne in lane 2. Olivia Jones from Western Australia Rowing Club in 3. Lauren Lyon from Sydney in 4. Nicola Greenland ANU in 5. Rachel Savas from Sydney Uni in 6. Catherine Plume, Griffith Uni in 7. And Adelaide Scott from UTS in lane 8.
Well, John, 3 of the local scullers there from Sydney. The remainder come from across the country, but first of all, the name there, Lauren Lyon, a young lady who started a career at the Lycone Rowing Club, went across the Lauren Line, and has certainly upped the ante over there, done a terrific job. I noticed the Sydney sculler there, Raquel Cavas, who used to row for Nepean up here, and Lauren Lyon and Raquel Cavas raced in a double scull together at a previous, I think, New South Wales or even an Australian Championships.
Well, they were both 1 and 2 come the 1500 metre mark, Barry.
Oh, well, that's very interesting, John. Thanks for that. And Adelaide Scott from UTS. Now, I think the 3 girls that I've mentioned there from Sydney are under selectors' eyes, ready to take part in the Youth 8 squad for New South Wales. So they're top young scullers here, and they caught the eye of the selectors, and they're in the squad of quite a big squad. And I think we should hear who was in that final, the Youth 8 for women, at the end of this regatta, John. Well, you mentioned that it was young, the Sydney, it looks like Sydney University colours out there, John.
Yes.
Is that Raquel Cabas?
It is,
yeah, Raquel
yes.
Cabas.
Yes.
And that's an interesting one there from Sydney University. She's their number 3 sculler, and she leads. And as John said, I can see the Sydney colours over there at Lauren Line. Lauren Line now coached by Lachlan Carter, and under the stable of Donovan Sheck, done a terrific job over at Sydney Rowing Club. They've done wonders for that young lady. And Cabas likewise from Sydney University takes the win. Second place then will go to young Lauren Line. Used to go to Mara's Sisters at Woolwich. She takes second place. Third place then will go to Jones of the Western Australia Rowing Club. And fourth place then to lane 8. That's UTS Adelaide Scott. Will take fourth place. 1, 2, 3, 4 go to the final. So the 3 local young ladies there eligible for the Women's Youth 8 for New South Wales, moving through to the final.
And the time a little slower than the first heat, 8:00.02.
Well, we
Race
mentioned
12 underway now. This is sponsored by Bentley's. It's the first heat of the men's under 21 singles, and the first 4 direct to the final. Jordan Duff in lane 1 from Sydney Uni. Joseph Wilson lane 2 from North Esk in Launceston, Tasmania. Jack Bowser Griffith Uni in 3. Chad Dericourt from Swan River and WAIS in 4. Oscar Williams UTS in 5. Isaac Game to Wong in 6. Connor Hopkins Mossman in 7. Lachlan Dunn St George in lane 8.
Well, just looking through the heats, we've got 2 heats there. I'm just seeing Capital Lakes do have a competitor in the second of the heats, and the reason I looked at Capital Lakes, it was last year, and the current under 21 single scull champion for men is a name that we'd all be familiar with, Alex Grezkowiak from Capital Lakes. Another one of your old stomping grounds there, John.
Yes, though when I was involved with rowing in the ACT, the Capital Lakes and indeed the club represented by Luke Letcher, Black Mountain, didn't exist. They're 2 new clubs since I moved from the ACT.
Well, from all accounts, John, you're a very good chairman of ACT rowing, and you've continued your interest and no doubt passed a lot of your the value in rowing onto your grandson, Angus Moore.
Well, from an administration point of view, being the ACT, we did have some problems, but we managed them anyway.
Well, the ACT got a lot of problems down there at the present moment, not necessarily with rowing, John.
Well, let's look at the race underway. I mentioned before Heat 1 of the men's under 21 single scull, a race sponsored by Bentley's. And we're approaching the last couple of 100 metres of that event.
Well, this is event 12, as you can see, and I'm looking at the colours of Mossman on this side. The Mossman sculler there. There was a Mossman sculler supposed to be racing in lane 7, but he's certainly not in lane 8. Yeah, he's in lane 7, so that's the Mossman sculler. That'll be Connor Hopkins, coached by Matthias Ullmark. But a little bit of competition for young Connor Hopkins coming from the far side of the course. And you can see there, I think that's Wilson from North Esk, Tasmania. North Esk, he's the number 2 sculler. He will take the win. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 also moving to the final. In second place, the Sydney University sculler Jordan Duff for second place. Third place then will go to Swan River's Chad Dericourt for third, and fourth place then, and just is Jack Bowser from Griffith Uni Surfers Paradise in fourth place. And he'll be followed by Hopkins of Mossman, who misses out on moving into the final. And then also likewise Toowong's Isaac Game, who reaches to sixth place. And then the final sculler to go across.
From St George, Lachlan Dunn. And with Lachlan approaching the finish line, I'll run through the list of the next heat in progress at the moment. It's the second heat of the men's under 21. And Angus Gall from UTS in lane 1, Miles McQuillan Swan River in 2, Fergus Ellis Melbourne University in 3, in lane 4 from Banks it's Bowen Haffey, in lane 5 from Sydney Uni Miller Argent, in lane Capital Lakes Jordan Thompson, Sydney University's Karen Riak 7, and Jack Barrett from North Esk in lane 8.
Well, you mentioned the name Riak. I'm pretty sure Kieran Riak won the bronze medal in the last New South Wales Championships in the under 19 category. He got third to, we mentioned the name Kennedy Everett taking out the gold, but Kieran Riak. So he's back again and trying to follow up a good performance in the under 19s now in the under 21 sculls. And there we are. Capital Lakes do have a representative there, coached by David Bagnall. Gee, he's been coaching a while down there, hasn't he? He's done a great job.
Yes.
He loves his coaching. Was he down there in your day, John?
Yes, he was involved with, at that stage, I think, club captain for ANU, boat club, I think, from memory. Certainly involved with ANU. Barry, we had a win a moment ago from Tasmania. Joseph Wilson from North Esk. We might even have a double here. I think that Jack Bennett also from North Esk in lane 8, doing very well down there.
Yes, he is. Jack Barrett over there on the far side of the course, and he still continues to lead through the 1500 metre mark too. There's Barrett, and a good length and a half then back to Ellis of Sydney University, also on the far side. And then we come across Riak, got third place here over the 1500 metre mark, and he's about a half a length behind Ellis. But it is a good row coming from Jack Barrett on this side of the course, and it's a very fair course here, John, as we can see. Slight following conditions. As a matter of fact, it's trying to make up its mind which way it's going to blow at the present moment, but it's a very fair course. As one might remember, the course was designed on an east-west axis, so that the course is generally in shelter from the mountains that we see, and it's been on a few occasions that they've had to cancel racing because of strong winds.
Well, we had that unusual occurrence just before Christmas, Barry, of that sudden storm coming straight in the mountains west to it and creating a surf.
Yeah,
you had to cancel half the program.
Yeah.
Most unusual.
But that was the debate over the El Nepean course. You know, it was reasonably fair, but if it had a strong wind, you can imagine that it treated some lanes better than others. Well, there's a young man on the far side over there working his heart out, but on this side, look at this. Here's another one. Very, very now easy back turn, very relaxed, has a glance across at the sculler on the far side. He's not too worried about it, a little bit more pressure. And as they go across the line, it will be lane 8. This is Jack Barrett, as John said, from North East, taking the win. Second place then will go to Melbourne University, Fergus Ellis for second place. Third place then will go to Riak of Sydney University for third, and fourth will go to lane 5, Miller Argent for the fourth place. And then after Argent, you've got Thompson from Capital Lakes, McWillan from Swan River, and Gall from UTS, and Haffey from Banks, in that order. And that time, John, was
7:20.96.
7:20.96.
We now change categories for our next 3 events. There are 3 heats in the Championship Women's Under 23 Single Scull. It's a series sponsored by V Insurance, and we're dropping back to the 1, 2, 3 to qualify for a final. So only 1, 2 and 3 in that order will proceed to race 65. Frederica Gibbs from Mossman in lane 1, Lily Alton, University of Queensland and QAS in 2, Lucy Coleman, Sydney Uni in 3, Alexandra Wrigley from Tamar in 4, Harriet Hudson, Sydney and the local Institute of Sport in 5, Alina Parrish, Sydney Uni 6, Rita Thompson from University of Queensland and QAS in 7, and Sienna Grady from Nepean in 8.
Well, I think the Sydney supporters, and she's sponsored by the New South Wales Institute of Sport, would be looking at young Harriet Hudson. She's racing out of lane 5, and she is currently, I think, she's currently the under 23 New South Wales single scull champion, an Australian representative, racing in the big time with some of the older representatives around from New South Wales, but a great ambassador for Sydney Rowing Club, and come under the watchful eye of the New South Wales Institute of Sport. You'll be watching her very closely to see how she goes. Now she's should be the 4th sculler out from this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can't see her there at the present moment. John, I don't know whether she's in or she's out. This is race 14 now on the way and through the halfway mark. There she is, through the halfway mark. It's time of 3:44. Harriet Hudson out of lane 5.
All starters there, yes.
Now Hudson has about a length lead over Lily Alton from the University of Queensland. She's racing out of lane 2. So that's first and second place. And then through the 1500 metre mark, well that's a bit of a surprise, because Alton, back in second place, has now been pushed back to 3rd, and Rhea Thompson also from the University of Queensland has moved up into 2nd place, and that's pushed Alton back to 3rd. So there's the top 3, and 4th place from Tamar is Alexandra Wrigley. So the only change that's taken place is an exchange of positions in the University of Queensland scullers at Thompson with Alton.
We do have 2 finals for this event, an A and a B final. 1, 2, 3, important one, go direct to the A final, and 4, 5 and 6 will go to the B final.
There's that wind coming up again, John.
Yes, just following the scullers down.
Well, Harriet Hudson is just so keyed up at the present moment. She's really got the rate. Doesn't fool around. A very honest rowing young lady there from lane 5. She takes the win, moves through to the final. 2nd place will go to lane 7. That's Rhea Thompson from the University of Queensland. And third place will go to, and that was Exchange, also representing the University of Queensland, the Academy of Sport over there. Lily Alton will take the third, so placings haven't changed in the last 500. And then back to lane 4, Tamar from Tasmania. Alexandra Wrigley will take fourth place. And the top 4 there, fifth place looks like it might go the way of Mossman. Frederica Gibbs over there. Only about a length in the lead. And Frederica is out of lane 1. And with every stroke, the Sydney University sculler is gaining on it but won't catch her. So fourth place will go to the Mossman. Fifth place then will go to Sydney University. And sixth place then will go to Alina Parish, coached by Debbie Fox. And seventh place then to young Nepean Sienna Grady. Nice performance coming from her. Sienna Grady, coached by Lindsay Callaghan.
7:36.51, the winning time by Harriet Hudson, Sydney Rowing Club.
And those people coming from interstate would well remember Lindsay Callaghan has been in the past a former able-bodied coach himself, and now including in his stable has been some of the para rowers from this area. Been quite successful with those.
Now the second of 3 heats for the women's under-23 single scull. It's race 15 on your program. On the way down now, Emma Gelati from Sydney Union 1, Georgie Gleeson Mercantile 2, Anna Kirkwood Melbourne 3, Chloe Patterson Banks 4, Sarah Ashland North Esk 5, Grace Reed UTS 6, Caitlin Nicholson Adelaide and SASI in 7, and Romola Davenport from Sydney in 8. Barry, we spent a bit of time talking about the classic races for the men's elite single scull, which opened our afternoon rowing program. We're going to have a similar lineup at the end of the program when we're looking at the men's elite pair. All those rowers are going to be back in pair combination, so going to be an interesting way to finish off the afternoon rowing.
Well, it's been the best opening days I think we've ever seen on a program here for New South Wales, and I agree with everything you said. It's interesting to see the combinations that the Australian selectors have asked for, because those that we saw racing now have all been mixed up, I think, in those last races, and that's due to be the races that John's referring to. In fact, the championship women's elite pair, which precedes those two events, will start off at about 5 to 4, so let's say 4 o'clock roughly. So between 4 and 4:30, that last half hour, we'll have the championship women's elite pair and the championship men's elite pair. I can never remember anything coming up like this.
No,
it's been a wonderful program today.
It really is an excellent program. It really is.
Well, here's another one that you get, as we mentioned, Sydney Rowing Club and another delightful young lady. They're all delightful young ladies, so we'll say that and get that out of the way. But Sydney Rowing Club have got a great lineup there. Romola Davenport is this young lady. She's their number 2 sculler, and she's coming down there, and against her is Caitlin Nicholson from Adelaide. And I don't think they've competed against one another before. The Adelaide scull has probably got about a canvas on her at the present moment. But what a great run we have here. Neither giving away an inch, and there's just so much length between them. It's young Davenport. I think she was right up there with her, but the style coming out from Caitlin Nicholson, coached by Jason Lane and Millwood over there. And she's opened up now almost a length and a half. Full marks to Caitlin Nicholson. Takes first place. It will be Davenport for second. Third place then will go to Reed of UTS, and fourth place alongside her, Sarah Ashland from North Esker, a fourth. Fifth then will go across the far side to Kirkwood of Melbourne. And then Banks. And look, to all their supporters of these young ladies coming outside of Sydney, we've seen them from Adelaide, from North Esk, and here's the young lady now from Banks, Chloe Patterson. We wish you and all your supporters a wonderful regatta here today. It's taken on the appearance of more or less an Australian Championships Mark 1. I mean, the numbers of people that are here making the New South Wales Championship so successful in its opening day. And we do wish you all the best for those people up here for a good time. Of course, you'll be able to go to Penrith Panthers, and if you're a rower, you'll probably be early to bed, but Penrith Panthers have got great entertainment over there. What do you think, John? We might end up over there ourselves tonight, or we'll be looking for an early night.
I think I'll be an observer only, Barry. But just going back to the results of that race, proceeding to the A final will be Caitlin Nicholson, Romola Davenport and Grace Reed, and to the B final it will be Sarah Ashland, Anna Kirkwood and Chloe Patterson. But we're looking now, of course, to the third heat of the women's under 23rd singles, and that's sponsored again by V Insurance. 1, 2 and 3 A final, 4, 5 and 6 B final. Gemma Sibyllin from Mercantile in 1, Ella Bramwell from Adelaide and SA Institute from in lane 2, Katie Healy Mossman in 3, Sarah Parsons Sydney Uni 4, Taylor McCarthy from Cand and QAS in 5, in lane 6 from ANU, Jana Pretorius. In lane 7, Melbourne University's Charlotte Wirtz, and in lane 8 from UTS and the New South Wales Institute, Nisila Martinchek.
Well, an interesting club there is Cand, supported by the Queensland Academy of Sport. I think Cand was a private organisation. I know
it's a private club.
Yeah.
It's located at St Lucia on the Brisbane River. Been operating about 10, 12 years, I suppose. Doing very well. They've certainly had a number of their more recent year juniors going to the national team. So Cand is certainly producing good quality rowers at the moment.
Yeah, it was that club started off as a private club there. They purchased some very good quality boats, I think going back about 10 years ago when they first started off. And I think they also had a hand in the Grafton racing up there, which was mainly a Masters event on the second day, which involved schools up there in the Masters. What they call Grafton Head of the River or something like that. But yeah, Cand started off with a great personality leading it, and looks like themselves there's some support there from the Queensland Academy of Sport now.
It looks like it, yes.
And the other one is young Nichila Martinchek, racing on this side. She originally came from the Glebe Club as a Lone Ranger, and she did extremely well. And as we find a lot of the young scullers in some of the clubs, they gradually, and they're encouraged to go to some of the high-powered organisations from Sydney. And Martinchek has moved in now with the UTS, but she is the 2018 schoolgirl champion. This will give you some idea of her age. She's the New South Wales champion sculler in the schoolgirl category, and she also represented Australia in the double sculls. I don't know whether they raced or not. I think there was an injury over there at the junior championships, and they failed to get on the water in the finals. But anyway, nevertheless, a great line-up there. Sarah Parsons from Sydney University, names that we've seen. Gemma Gibbs-Siblin from the far side. But now look at this young lady coming down here. It's the
Canberra, Taylor McCarthy.
That can scull. That's the one we've been talking about from Queensland. So easy does she do it.
She's got a nice style. She's relaxed. Plenty of, I would say she's got a heap of reserve there left. She has to use it. Very nice row.
Well, Charlotte Weissers has to work very hard to get that second place. And on the far side, out of lane 2, I think that's Adelaide. Ella Bramwell, coached by Jason Lane, taking third place. Fourth then place will go to Nichella Martin-Check. So she gets there for a fourth. And fifth place then will go to Parsons of Sydney University. Fifth, rather. Sydney University, followed by Mercantile over there. And Gemma Siblin for sixth. And seventh place then will go to the young lady from the Australian National University. And she'll be judged in seventh place. One more still to be judged, and that's the Mossman sculler, Katie Healy.
And the time 7:56.84. So we do have, as we mentioned in this classification, both an A and a B final. Proceeding to the A final will be Taylor McCarthy, Charlotte Wirtz, and Ella Bramwell. And going to the B final will be Nicola Martin-Check, Sarah Parsons, and Gemma Siblin. Time 7:56.84.
Well, not far. In fact, it was a little faster than the previous heat, 7:57.
Well, we have the first of the men's under 23 singles heat underway. There will be an A and a B final. 1, 2, 3 to the A final. 4, 5, 6 to the B final. And in lane 2 from Griffith Uni, Cormac Kennedy Leverett. In lane 3, Sydney Uni, Nick Lesiuk. In lane 4 from West Australia Rowing Club, Jonathan Ashby. Lane 5 from Sydney, Hamish McDonald. Lane 6, Sydney University, Richard Ledger. In lane 7 from Adelaide and the SA Institute, Jack Deans. And from lane 8 in the Huon in southern Tasmania, Tyler Mason.
Well, leading the list over there, and right over there in lane 2 is John Caldham, Cormac Kennedy Leverett, coached by Marcus Ree. Now, I think he was the under-19 state champion for New South Wales. Griffith Uni, I mentioned his name before, but I'm pretty sure he was the under-19 state champion.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
well, our visitor from southern Tasmania, Tyler Mason, in lane 8 is certainly doing very well, probably in third place at this stage, which means you will move through Barry. But we look across to the far side. The colours of Griffith Uni, very vivid scarlet there, and that is Cormac Kennedy Leverett, doing very well indeed.
Well, as you can see, he's the, as I said, the under-19 state champion for New South Wales. And a good race going on for second down here between Ewan and you mentioned Adelaide. Is that right, John? I think
yes.
it's Ewan and Adelaide.
Ewan and Adelaide, yes.
In the B colours down there, B meaning B-double-E. Look at him go. He's keen, isn't he, eh? Jack Dean's the name, a one to watch. Doesn't move a lot of the body, but he moves the boat. Jack Deans, Jason Lane taking second place. Third place will go to Ewan's Tyler Mason. And fourth place to lane 4, that's Ashby of West Australian Rowing Club. He followed by the Sydney Rowing Hamish McDonald in for fifth. Sixth place then will go to Lezac from Sydney University. And seventh place then will go to Sydney University Richard Ledger. And And that time, John, was race 17.
Race 17, and it is 6:55.93.
Now that it said 6:50. I wonder whether they've got their timings right. I mean, unless it's the conditions, I just find that 6:55 a very fast time when you think that what time? Going back about an hour and a half ago, our top boys were doing that in 7 minutes flat.
A modified time for that race, Barry, 6:55.87.
6:55.87, yeah. I'm pretty sure that the heats that we had of the top boys, and they weren't
about 7.
They weren't mucking around the National Training Centre fellas. They did a 7 minutes.
So we put a question mark against that, but nevertheless, that's the official time.
Well, if the times are honest, they might be looking at Cormac Kennedy Leverett. I'm talking about the Australian selectors. They might be asking Marcus Free, will he come on board as a coach? Yeah.
Well, V Insurance is again sponsoring Heat 2 of the men's under 23. Angus Dawson from Adelaide and the Institute in lane 2. David Latham from Mantle in 3. Devlin Walsh, Sydney Uni 4. Alexander Clark, Mercantile 5. Griffith University, Jackson Free in 6. Oscar Winter from Western Australia Rowing Club in 7. And from Banks in lane 8, James Meads.
Well, Coach Marcus Free there looked after Cormac Kennedy Leverett to take out the first heat. And he also probably had a role in his winning the under-19 state championship sculls for New South Wales, going back to last year. And now we see him as lining up for coaching his young fellow Jackson Free, also from Griffith Uni Surface Paradise, and he's in lane 6. So we'll be watching to see how closely he is as they move through the 1,000 metre mark. It was Dawson of Adelaide in the lead. In second place, it went to Griffith Uni Surface Paradise, so Free right up there. He's held that second position for quite some time. Walsh back in third place representing Sydney University. There's not much between them. And Western Australia back another half length. Oscar Winter from the West Australian Rowing Club. He's their number 1 sculler there out of lane 7 on this side of the course. And then Banks there with James Meads, followed by Clark of Mercantile. You probably about 5 seconds would cover the scullers at the tail end of the field there. And finally we had 7th place going to Fremantle's David Latham. And he was only about, he's starting to fall back a little bit. He was in 6th place, and now he's been pushed back a little. Back to 7th place. But Jackson Free was 2nd place there, I think, coming through the mark there. It was led by lane 2 on the far side, and lane 2, what's happened to lane 2?
Dropped back quite considerably.
He has
done the dash, it would appear, Barry.
And that means leads that Jackson Free out of lane 6 has taken the lead. And Jackson Free, there might be some problems here with the timing hut, but Jackson Free, there was no time given for him coming through the 1,500 metre mark. And now we need to check that very closely. I think it's Jackson Free, 3rd from this side, should be in lane 6, and that's him. Jackson Free about to take the win. The top 3 go through to the A final, and Free looks like he'll get there. Another win to Griffith Uni Surface Paradise, and he goes across the line, takes first place. Good race going on for 2nd. I think on the far side of the course it will go to lane 2. That's Dawson of Adelaide. 3rd place will go to, I think, Walsh of Sydney University for 3rd. They're the top 3. And Walsh will be followed well. They've got a photo for 2nd and 3rd. Then for 4th it will go to Winter. Meads, Winter comes from Western Australia. Then it goes back to Meads of Banks, Latham of Fremantle, Clark of Mercantile. But I thought the top 3 there, Jackson Free got there. And I'm pretty sure I thought Dawson got a second place from Adelaide, and Walsh from Sydney University. A good run from Walsh, coached by Don McLaughlin, and he's the university #1 sculler in this category, and he got over there in third. But there is a photo. And
Brighton from Sydney in lane 5 from Cand. We spoke about Cand earlier from Brisbane. Right from lane 6, Sydney University, Harrison Rowston, and in lane 7, the UTS and the New South Wales Institute, Nick Lavery.
Lavery's doing quite well. He's in this lane on this side of the course, and he looks to have a very good view. I don't know what we have the difference between first and second place there. There was about 3 seconds going through the halfway mark, 2.84, and second place then was Glacken of the Capital Lakes, back to Blythe of Queensland Academy of Sport once again, and Grant of Adelaide. Ralston back in 5th place at Sydney University. Through the 1500 metres, South Wales Institute of Sport continues to hold the lead in the third heat. Ends under 23 single scull. 1, 2, 3 moving through to the A final. That Lavery has opened up that a lead of more than a length and a half now over Harry Glacken of Capital Lakes, which is in lane 3 on the far. And you can see the canned sculler there, Riley Blythe, coached by Scott Rowe. And doesn't have the Queensland Academy of Sport behind him, but I tell you what, he's in the mix for make the top 3. I think that's the canned colours, isn't it, John, with the reddish?
Yeah, it's a red
undercarriage.
The white top, red base.
Red undercarriage there.
Well, pleased to welcome all our visitors for day 1 of the New South Wales State Rowing Championships, but also for those who might be watching the stream of this. Hope you're enjoying it, and stay with us for the next 2 days.
Well, a bit of movement coming from Glacken from Capital Lake. Is that Capital Lake's colours over there? And whilst the Lavery has held sway, I think there's a big challenge coming from lane 3. Glacken over there, is he? No, he looks across. I think he's just content to take second place, but the win will go to Lavery of UTS. Second place then will go to lane 3, Glacken of Capital Lakes. Third place will go to the Can Sculler from Queensland, Riley Blythe for third place. Fourth place then to Grant of Adelaide. And then there's a big gap. Now they're the top 4, but unfortunately only 3 go to the A final. And in 5th place it will go then to Sydney University, Harrison Ralston. Taking 5th, and 6th place going to Jake Brighton from Sydney Rowing Club. And John, would I be correct in saying that here we've gone through 2 hours of racing? I haven't seen one withdrawal. No,
very good indeed. It is reasonably common to get withdrawals, particularly at the heat, but no, that everyone's lined up and been there as required. A winning time at that race just finished 7:15.11, and that means that proceeding to the A final will be Nick Lavery, Harry Glacken and Riley Blythe. To the B final, Kane Grant, Harrison Rowston and Jack Brighton.
Well, John, we thought our first 4 races of the day were spectacular, and now everyone's going to got this great treat. We have the top women in Australian rowing coming down here in the next one, and you can tell us where they come from, but you'll recognise the names, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great race coming up here now. I think we've got 2 heats, have we, John?
We've got 2 heats. First 4 go to A final, and the rest go to a B final, but Katrina Bateman from Mercantile in lane 2, Clara Getskatsevac from Capital Lakes in 3, Genevieve Horton, Sydney University and the NTC in 4, Roella Meredith, Sydney University and the local institute, Thea Adamson from Banks in 6, and Eline Kalamos from Hewen in 7. Tasmania's been well represented here today. We've had a couple of rowers from North Esk. We've had rower from Tamar. They're all up in northern Tasmania, around the Launceston area, of course. And from the south, we've had some rowers representing Huon. Huon, of course.
And for Mercantile, not to be confused with Amanda Bateman, of course, who comes from Mercantile also. From the Australian team, there's the, I think that's Grez Kariak, coached by Nick Garrett. She's out of the Australian under-23 squad. Genevieve Horton as the 2018 Australian Women's Quad. They won the B Championships, and lining up with her, Rowena Meredith, I think also was from the same crew, and that Hannah Vermeesh in Australia. Was she not a reserve in the Australian team? I think she was in Australia, a reserve there. And the State Women's Single Sculling Championship of last year.
Now the second heat, and the same rules apply. 1 to 4 to the A final, remainder B final. Karina from Sydney Uni in lane 2. Hannah Vermeesh from West Australian Rowing Club and the National Training Centre in lane Ewing, Sydney Uni, and the National Training Centre in 4. Amanda Bateman, Mercantile TC in 5. Catherine Michaelmore, Melbourne University in 6, and Fiona Albert from Mercantile.
There's the sister. We saw Katrina racing from Katrina Bateman racing for Mercantile. I don't know the family, but I can only make the assumption that Mercantile also have Amanda Bateman rowing in this race. So the sisters, they're very well presented. Here comes that wind again, just as they make their way down here now. That young Grez Kariak that with his heat, going back a couple of years ago, she was racing in the Nell Slatter Trophy. She's the sister of, I think she was identified, I think she might have got about a third or something after M. Crow, who was racing at that stage of the game, a very good sculler, but she got a third behind her, so she was very good as a junior, and then did extremely well. Well, here they come down here now. The second heat, as John said, of the women's elite single scull, and a big line up there. National training centres. We've got certainly the Western Australian Vermeesh. As I said, I think she was a reserve out of the Australian team last year. You've got Amanda there, and also from Mercantile, the sister of Katrina Bateman, and we saw they got in the earlier heat racing there. So as they race down at the 1500 metres, the National Training Centre from Western Australia, and then Simpson of Sydney University back in 6th place.
And the 7:30.27. So proceeding to the A final on those unofficial results: Amanda Bateman, Fiona Ewing, Catherine Michaelmore, and Fiona Albert, which means that Hannah Vermeesh and Corinne will be competing in the B final a little later in the program. I'll end up with the Battle of the Dinosaurs, we might say, in the first 4 heats of the event today. We now got the Battle of the Big Dinosaurs, the semi-finals of the elite single men's scull.
Well, there's no need to go through the rundown of them. We know that there's just about everybody there is represented Australia, and in various classes of boats. There's a great line up there. It is absolutely fantastic to see these names. I don't, as we said earlier on today, I have never seen the National Training Centre put up people like this.
Certainly in the sculling events, yep.
Sculling events been
and
fantastic.
it's made a spectacular program, quite frankly.
So we're giving our blessing to the national selectors, are we, John?
I think we ought to, yes. And they can leave the tip under the saucer when they go, I think, Barry.
Oh dear, no, it's good to see. Isn't it exciting to be part of the rowing up here on...
Barry, talking about the course, some of the preliminary detail for the regatta indicated to take note of the heat program, but it doesn't look like, with the forecast we have, it doesn't look like that program will have to be implemented, which is a good thing, but we'll have to keep our eye on it and just see what happens as we progress through the days.
John, I hear that the centenary of the King's Cup, which is going to feature at the National Championships, will be racing also at Henley. There is a selection process going on for the Australian 8. Now they're going to try to emulate, might be the word, the running of the King's Cup over there in 1919, the Peace Regatta. But I understand they call it a race, but the crews will represent the countries and the crews that race there, but it will be a race. I mean, they can't do it so that the Australian #1 crew gets up and takes out the King's Cup, can they?
Oh, I don't know, it might cost us a bit.
And talking to Scott Patterson, we'll have some more information tomorrow. We'll get a big crowd there to talk about what's happening with those celebrations. I think there's going to be a rather dominant up here in the Rowing Championships of memorabilia from the Peace Regatta, including original programs. Scott, I know, has been doing a wonderful job in producing a documentary, but it's hard to get any of the television stations or any that to pick up and show that documentary. I think he's worked on something about 90 minutes interviews with the top rowers from the Governor General, from the State Governor, and he's done a great job, all under the executive producer, I think, is Anne from Victoria. But there'll be some more information on that tomorrow. Well, here they come down, John. Heavens above. There wouldn't be a well, there would be a lot of whiskers between them, wouldn't there?
Yeah, well, look at them in lane 1. It's David Bartolo from Sydney Uni, Spencer Turren from Sydney in lane 2, Cameron Girdleston, Sydney Uni 3, David Watts, Sydney in 4, Caleb Angel, ANU in 5, Campbell Watts, Sydney Uni in 6, Hamish Playfair, UTS in 7, and Henry Yule from Tamar in lane 8. So Yule has done very, very well to get to the semi-final.
Well, he certainly has. The only change that I can see there is there's been a change for 2nd and 3rd place, and Girdleston, who was 3rd in the first 1,000, has moved now up into 2nd place, and he's only about half a length less than that behind David Watts. So it's Watts from Sydney Rowing Club in 1st place at the 1,500 metre mark. A smidgen behind him was Girdlestone, and then 0.21 of a second Antle out of the Australian team was there. Campbell Watts from Sydney University back there in 4th place, a half length then back to Playfair of UTS, then Tamar Sculler, Henry Yule, as John suggested, and then a half a length back to Barthelot from Sydney University, and then Sydney Spencer Turin. Bit of a surprise there. He's back about 2.5 lengths, I think, back towards the tail end of the field. Well, but look, absolutely spectacular finish coming up here.
Great finish coming up, Barry. I can see the cameras already lining up for the photo finish. But
well, this is the first of the semi-finals, John. 1, 2, 3, 4 to move through. Look at all the Australian boats out there, all the dark colours and the green. These are Australian representatives. These are going to be representing rowing not only in the World Championships but in the Olympics. They come up here, lane 5. It's Caleb Antle. A big surprise there. We'll take out 1st place, 2nd place. We'll go to lane 3. I think that was Girdlestone getting up there for 2nd place. And, well, I think they'll have a photo for 2nd, 3rd. I thought Girdlestone did get 2nd. Back in 4th place, it will go to Watts. Playfair will go in 5th place out of lane 7, followed by Yule. A good row from the Tamar representative there, 6th place. out of lane 8, then followed by Barthelot from Sydney University back in 7th on the far side of the course. Well, heavens above, it was close between the position for 3rd, which we'll find out in the photo, and Watts just failing to miss out by 0.54 of a second. For the semi-final, 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the A final, and the rest go to the B final. That's race 42 on your programs. We await with interest the results of the photo. Caleb Antle.
Snappy time, Barry, 6:51.70. So on to the 7. All our heats were 7 about or plus.
Yeah.
So we're under that. And that was a tough finish, that one.
Yeah. It might have been slight, a little bit of support coming from the wind in that race. I think the following conditions improved from the first of the heats that we saw. But nevertheless, that's a smart time.
And the second of these semi-finals is underway. First 4 to the A final, rest B. And in lane 1, Sam Marsh from Swan River. Lane 2, Simon Keenan from Melbourne Uni. Lane 3, Luke Letcher, Black Mountain Rowing Club. Alexander Hill from Adelaide in 4. Joshua Booth, Melbourne University 5. Nicholas Parnell, Sydney Uni in 6. Robert Black from Mossman in 7. And Alex Purnell, Sydney University in lane 8.
Well through the halfway mark, it was Hill led, as you might expect, from Adelaide, in concert with the National Training Centre, then followed by Booth. As they go through the 1500 metre mark, it was Hill. Booth clinging on there, but about a length behind, about a length and a half behind Hill. Luke Letcher now in the mix for 3rd place, about a half a length behind Booth. And then we go, about a bow ball behind Letcher was Purnell, back to Sam Marsh, a length behind Purnell. And then Alex Purnell from the National Training Centre. Well, they're both Nick and Alex, but Alex back about a half a length. So fairly close racing in the middle of the field, and they'll be followed by Robert Black. That's a bit of a surprise. Well, Robert Black's known as a sculler. Back in 7th place at the 1500 metre mark. He also stroked, I think, the silver medal winning 8 that we saw at the World Championships, and followed then by Melbourne University Simon Keenan. And he's only about a bow ball behind Robert Black at this stage. So very, very good racing going on there. But these places are going to change as we see them coming down here now. The cream of Australian scullers and rowers vying for selection, and not only in the Australian team, which will be announced later, but also in New South Wales. The New South Wales obviously will be representing in the new state versus state racing at the Australian Championships. This is the second of the semi-finals, the Championship Men's Elite Single Scull of New South Wales. And the leading sculler there, I think that is Alex Hill.
Alex Hill from Adelaide Rowing Club.
Alex Hill out there in lane number 4 is taking the win, but look at the other placings coming up here. He looks across in lane 6. That's Nick Purnell, not going to be left out here. Pulls an extra one out of the hat, takes 2nd place. 3rd place will go to Booth of Melbourne University, in 4th place right on the far side. I think that will go to, that could be Luke Letcher. Gets up there for a 4th place. Luke Letcher, he did get there, 4th place, 156 behind Booth, and then followed by Marsh of Swan River, Purnell of Sydney University, Black of Mossman, and Keenan of Melbourne University. The time there, 6:56.02,
about 5 seconds slower than the first heat. But that first heat, there was a vicious finish, tight finish.
It was very tight.
Oh, yes.
Well, we need to get that photo fixed up for race number 22.
Well, the placings for race 22, I did have them here. Here we are. First was Caleb Antle from ANU. A second went to Henry Ewell from Tamar. Very good effort. Third, David Watts from Sydney. 4th, Campbell Watts from Sydney University. 5, Hamish Playfair from UTS. 6, I'm looking at 6 at the moment. I'm missing something there, Barry, when I scroll down. Here we are, 6th place went to Alex Purnell from Sydney University. 7th to Robert Black of Mossman. No, that can't be right. That's 23.
No, that's race 23.
23. Well, 22's not on the screen.
22's gone. I was just looking to see what they
and something wrong with my transcription. I'm missing one of the scullers there. So.
Well, I thought Antle, certainly you were right with Antle, but I thought Girdleston had got up there for second place. We'll have to check that out, see if we can get some information on that.
Girdleston second, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I've got David Watts as third, with Campbell Watts as 4, but we'll confirm that as soon as we can. Well, more heat coming down today, and just a reminder, because the afternoon rowing is a preliminary to 2 big days of rowing yet to come. They're all heats or semis, and so there's no presentations here this afternoon, but they will certainly come thick and fast tomorrow. Heat 1 now, the championship women's under 21 lightweight single. Thank you for Stroke Sides as Designs as the sponsor. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the final. The rest eliminated. So we've only got 5 in the final. So 1 will be deleted from the final. Alexander Moylan, ANU in lane 3. Maxine France Glebe in 4. Corby Homburg. Newcastle Grammar in 5, Maxine Rennie in ANU in 6, and Hannah Tippett from Mersey, another Tasmanian club, over on the northwest coast from lane 7.
Well, a lovely shot on the screen there, John, that you can see the girls, a close-up of the girls as they move through now into the 1500 metre mark. This is race 24 on your programs, and through the 1500 metre mark it was Alexandra Moylan representing the Australian National University that moved through in first place, and she did that in a time of as you can see 6:02.35, and she was followed by Tippett of Mersey, and about a length and a half behind. A couple of lengths then back to Maxine Rennie from the Australian National University. Corby Holmberg back in 4th place in lane 5, and similar distance back. But it was young Maxine France from Glebe trying to push Corby Holmberg. I think she might be, I think Maxine France, coached by Brad Smith over there at the Glebe Club. Nice to see her involved here, but a classic field. But she'd be pushing Holberg, but I think Holberg might get up there in 5th place. Well, they come down here now, and you can see on the flanks our race leaders. This is Hannah Tippett from Mersey, who was rated in 2nd place at the 1500 metre mark. She's closest to the grandstand. She's on this side of the course, and John, I think she might have got up and taken the lead.
She has. I mean, we could say that her ferry certainly crossed the Mersey, as they say in the song. She's doing very, very well indeed.
You're up with the modern songs. The ferry across the Mersey.
Yeah, I heard it the other day.
Did you?
Yes. I didn't think it was Tasmania. I thought it might have been elsewhere. But,
okay, well, on
Hannah Tippett it is from Mersey Rowing Club. Although there's a burst coming from Alexander Moylan over on the far side. But it is 1, 2, 3 and 4 to the final. So the placings aren't that critical at this stage.
Well, sorry, John, I was just going to say, it looks like the family connection there with Hannah Tippett, coached by David. It looks like dad in the mix, or brother, or relation anyway. Well, the first place then will go to Alexandra Moylan, coached by Nigel Harding. She'll take the win. And 2nd place then will go to Hannah Tippett, quite prepared to take 2nd place with 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through. 3rd place then will go to Maxine Rennie from the Australian National University, judged in 3rd place, and 4th place, and the Glebe young lady did get there, Maxine France. Or as a
race 24, 8:09.21. I would think, Barry, that 5th place sculler there, Corby Homburg from Newcastle Grammar, giving away a few years in an under 21 event.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a good effort.
Well, all these young people that race, and you know, we've seen them racing here. They're some of them have been around a little bit longer than the others, but they each have to get their boat here. They have to get their entry in. Their coaches probably put them through the same amount of time during the week. Some of them might even be, although in this the under 21s lightweight singles, and some of them might be still at school. You never know. They're studying at university, so they're all going through the same protocols and getting up.
It's pretty good.
Oh dear, oh dear.
But anyway, Heat 2 is on the way down. Women's under 21 lightweight single. And Isabel Johnson from Sydney in lane 3. Phoebe Wolf Mercantile. Bianca Gillette from ANU in 5. Zoe Reid from Glebe in 6. And in lane 7 from Hewan Hall. Tasmanians are here in big numbers, Barry. Good to see.
Yeah, that Kate Hall rings a bell. I don't know whether she was ever a Sydney girl from Tasmania.
I think I recall her rowing for one of the Tasmanian schools at a regatta up here, National Championship.
Could be right.
2-3 years ago.
Yeah. Was there a Kate Hall or a name like that used to row for Roy? Oh, I'm probably wrong there. Yeah, I'm probably wrong. But it's a lovely place. Ewan Valley. It's a lot of champions down there. The
it certainly has. And in days gone past, Barry produced a lot of apples. Not so many these days, but days gone past. You could stand on the hill looking south over the Huon Valley on the second weekend in October, and it was nothing. Apple blossoms for miles and miles. Quite a sight.
Well said. Let's see, Ewan, young lady there, Kate Hall on this side, back a little bit. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the final, and this is the second championship women's under 21 lightweight single scull. And for race 25 through the 1500 metre mark, Isabel Johnson from Sydney was in the lead. Now she's on the far side, still continues to hold that. She's coached by the Sydney coach Lachlan Carter. And in second place, well, the Australian National University scholar there, Bianca Gillett. In second place, about a length of clear water behind. Renee Domashens coaching her, and she will take second place. So she moves through to the final. And third place, or 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gee, I suspect we might have had a win in the last foot of that race, Barry.
And I think you have got it coming up here now. Lane 7, you and Kate Hall will take third place. And fourth will go to lane 4, Mercantile. And then fifth place will go to, this is the young glebe sculler, Zoe Reid, coached by Malcolm Campbell. Judged in fifth place. And for those people from interstate, the Glebe Rowing Club was in a place called Blackwattle.
They were professionals, and in those days the stewards would not allow anyone who was employed for a living to row in the crew. They were regarded as professionals.
Did Kim Mackney's father row in the crew in 1936, the Police 8?
Not sure. Not sure.
Yeah. But
of course, the 36 Olympics were featured very extensively on that book produced a couple of years ago now, The Boys in the Boat, based on the US crew, which actually won the Olympic, which upset Hitler and Mussolini no end. That wasn't in their plan.
Yeah. That was a wonderful book, Boys in the Boat, and it showed the progress of that crew, the university crew, and even the way in which they supported. The book analysed the background and the thinking going on with each member of that crew, which is a wonderful book, but also the spectators who used to follow down the major university running by train. There was a train line that ran alongside the track. Perhaps we could get the old 36 locomotive to steam up the side of the Olympic rowing course up here. Put a train line up there and...
Well, my plan was when they disbanded the monorail, we put it round this course.
What a thought.
But
gee whiz.
You could follow the race, you could have your cameras in it, have your commentary in it, but didn't have, no one thought it was a good idea except me.
I think it went to Tasmania.
Well, that was one of the suggestions.
The monorail, did it get down there?
It was the Mayor of Hobart wanted to install it to run from Hobart City to North Hobart, but I don't think it happened.
Well, we're now on race 26, and race 26 through the 1500 metre mark saw Hamish Harding from the Australian National University in lane 4. So Hamish leads now, as you can see in the university colours over there, and he leads quite handsomely. He's got it open on himself. Now the colours of this man coming up here on his left, I think that's the Banks, Tony Lee from Banks, coached by Will Raven, who seems to become somewhat of a coach down there in Victoria. So Banks, number 2 sculler. Tony Lee will take second place. 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the final.
I think it's lane 6, Barry, which is Wyatt Bat from
it is 6. It is
Sydney
6.
Uni.
You're quite right. Sydney Uni, Wyatt Bat. It is Sydney. So it is Bat. You're quite right. Got second place there, and Norton of Capital Lakes for a third, and fourth is Matheson of Toowong.
17.02. Now that was heat 1 of the men's under 21 lightweights. Heat 2 is now underway, and thank you to our sponsors, Strokeside Designs. Lachlan Ziekter from Banks in lane 3, Daniel Webb, University of Queensland in 4, Jack Message from UTS in 5, Nicholas Tanner from Capital Lakes in 6, and Austin Dipple from Griffith Uni in 7. Now there used to be a Nick Tanner rode for Canberra Grammar School in years gone by, maybe the same one, I don't know. Coached by David Bagnall, Luke Hennessy.
Well, the local boy here, Jack Message from UTS, went through the halfway mark in just under 3:40, and he was followed by the University of Queensland sculler Danny Webb, and that's they're right in the centre of the course in lanes 4 and 5, and then Banks sculler Lachlan Regatta was back in 3rd. And then just behind him, almost just by a smidgen, so very close racing down there, Austin Dibble, representing Griffith Surface Paradise, and back in 5th place was Nick Tanner, as John said, and from representing Capital Lakes. But the race leader at that halfway mark was Message from UTS, right in the centre of the course.
Well, our regatta, as usual, and thanks to the boat race officials, is certainly running very, very well to time. Our final race of the day, which is race 39 on the program, and that's scheduled to be rowed at 4:25. But again, we offer our thanks to all our boat race officials and all our volunteers who support and manage the regatta in a range of different ways. Thank you for your help. You've got 2 days of hard work well ahead of you, but I'm thanking you in anticipation.
Well, John, coming up here now, the placings haven't changed from the halfway mark in a Message from UTS, still in the lead in a time of 5:33. I think it's more than probably about a boat length now in the lead over Dan Webb from the University of Queensland, right alongside him on the far side. And then back in 3rd place, it's Regatta from Banks, their number 1 sculler, and he's in lane 3. So lanes 3, 4, 5 starting to dominate, but it's lane 5. But But there's been a bit of improvement in the young fellow on this side from Austin Dipple, from Griffith Uni.
I keep my eye on him. He's lifting his rating at the moment. He's moving his boat quite well, and he's certainly placing himself to take a third place at this stage.
He started to make a move in that last, you're quite right, John, in that last 300 metres. He's made a good move, and plenty of length, plenty of rate. And well, of course, we're in the lightweight class here, so he's not a big man, but he's really starting to move the boat along. He's looking at getting into that top 4. So if it's a trier, I see the bank sculler there on the far side. Regatta had a look and starting to panic now because he saw this young fellow Dipple from Griffith Uni Surface Paradise trying to get there. Across the line it will be Message takes the win. Second place it will go to Webb of University of Queensland.
And Dipple will take his third.
And he did. It's Dipple from Griffith Uni taking the third place, and fourth place will go to Banks Regatta, and fifth place then will go to Capital Lakes Nick Tanner.
And it is 1, 2, 3 and 4 direct to the final.
So Tanner misses out there, and the time, John, for race 27?
7:26.80. No, that's, yes, they're right, 7:26.80. We're now looking at the Championship Women's Under 23 Lightweight Scull. And again, it's 1, 2 and 3 to a fine, 1, 2, 3, 4 rather, to an A final. A B final will take the rest of the competitors. The Regatta shop is the sponsor for this event, and go and have a look at their stall up behind the grandstand. Always here at our regattas, always supporting us.
Well, this for New South Wales supporters, the next two events in the Championship Women's Under 23 Lightweight Single Scull in the heats. The Victoria Cup, of course, they do have a squad yet to be nominated who will be in the Victoria Cup New South Wales representative side competing in the Australian Championships. But the young lady there, Michaela France, who was in lane 3, that's the third one from the far side in this heat. She's certainly in the squad, and along with Jera Petritas, Mazzaro and Sarah Pound, former Australian rep. Well, she is an Australian representative, and they're in the state Victoria squad. So keep an eye open on Georgina Masters, certainly in the mix. And that's in the 2019 state versus state racing. So in both these heats, we're going to see young ladies from our New South Wales squad cheer them on. But here we have the heat number 1. I think John went through them. From Adelaide, Sophia Neary, Julie Roberts from ANU, Michaela France from Sydney University, Alexandra Utley from the Eastern Australia, Amy Underwood from Corowa, and Caitlin Douglas Toowong. And we've seen the Toowong scullers doing very well today. And as they move through for race number 28, the halfway mark, it was Julie Roberts from the Australian National University in the lead. She was followed by of Sydney University in lane number 4, right next to her. So it's of the scullers on the far side, those two were the leading scullers. Toowong, Caitlin Douglas, was only a little bit behind, probably about a canvas behind. Michaela was Caitlin Douglas, and then back a length to Alexandra Utley with her Sophia Neary, and then Amy Underwood from Corowa. So Toowong in third. This is a heat with 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the A final. And the only changes has been, I think, Utley has moved up on Neary. So Utley's starting to move up, the only sculler to move up and take a place in the field from the start, and they've just gone through the 1,000 metre mark. Well, as you can see, the sculler on this side, that's the Toowong sculler, Caitlin Douglas. And in the heats, we've seen Toowong have really done well in the heats of the other age groupings earlier on today. Caitlin Douglas is coached by Leo Karamitris and Kieran Dwyer. And so we'll keep an eye on that sculler. The Toowong have done extremely well. The leading sculler, Julie Roberts, 2 out from the far side, still up there, but I think she might be now back in second place at the 1500 metre mark. According to the computer, Roberts still in the lead, followed by Utley. Now, Utley was back in 4th place. I remember calling her, she's back in 4th place. She's now moved up into 2nd place, and that's pushed Michaela France back to 3rd. So Utley's the mover and the shaker from the University of Western Australia, and she's in lane 5. Keep her eye on her, she's right in the centre. So she's moved up a little bit on Julie Roberts, and one to watch. She's come through the field, still keeping an eye on Caitlin Douglas, the Toowong sculler in the yellow top shirt there on the grandstand side of the course. Water's starting to become a little bit, not choppy, but strong following condition, a little bit blustery there behind the field as they make their way down here. No white water coming up from the blades or spoons at this stage. And the top 4 now starting to, in the first of the heats, starting to emerge. Any one of these 4 scullers coming down here, but right in the centre, Michaela France. Wearing the Sydney University colours, still in with the mix. But on the far side, you can see Julie Roberts now appears to recapture that lead that she had, and leans right out. You know what the experts used to say, John, you want to get about a 30 degree when you're looking at sculling, and that all these young ladies now, they reach right out and they really make use, and this is the lightweights, and they always said a good lightweight can beat a heavyweight, but there it is, it's the demonstrator there. Julie Roberts takes the win. It's another attraction that they have down there, but the last time I was down there they were putting in the light rail.
Tram, Barry, please.
Tram.
Light rail.
Sorry, tram.
Trams run on light rail, trains run on heavy rail.
Right.
So you don't travel in the light rail in a tram which goes on light rail.
Well, as both you and I lived in the era of trams here in Sydney, but we do have a tramway museum here. It's out at a place called Loftus, and I think I think we might have copied Canberra with its dummy tram that they have in one of the restaurants down. There, there's also a trammer located out at Glebe, in the old Glebe tram depot out there.
Tram depot, yes.
Yeah.
The tram museum's open to the public each Wednesday and Sunday. I think it is. And they utilise what used to be the railway line, which ran from Sutherland to Knock.
Park, yeah.
So they use that line because as tram travel. They don't have any trains on that line at the moment.
There's some great attractions here in Sydney, and as you said today, welcome to Sydney. It's a great place to be, but it's also a great place for Mitchell Reinhardt coming down here in the first heat of the Champion Men's Under 23 Lightweight Single race sponsored by and Connor Ryan behind him in second place. Now they're right at the middle of the course. Toowong's David Carter and Matthew Reddy. Ed from the University of Western Australia is there, and of course going through the 1500 metre mark, Reinhardt had taken over the lead off the early Connor Ryan. So the race leader was from Adelaide in lane 4. Now has he still kept that? Yes, he still kept that lead. Adelaide, Mitchell Reinhardt, coached by Jason Lane, took over the lead at the 1500 metre mark. In second place, Connor Ryan from North Esk on his immediate right. And third colours now that we're starting to get to know quite well here this afternoon. Toowong, number 2 sculler David Carter back in third place. 1, 2, 3, 4 through to the A final. And the fourth man coming up here now, it comes from the University of Western Australia, Ethan Ed Cano Belosso. Judged in fourth place. Fifth place then will go to Toowong's Matthew. And 6 coming up here now, and a good try coming up from Mac Russell from the University of Queensland, judged in. And one more still to come. Love a Man in Pink, Banks Kane Bullock. The line will take 7th place, and the time for race 30.
7:10.20. So it'll be the first 4, Mitchell Reinhardt, Connor Ryan, David Carter and Ethan Aird to go to the A final, all other scullers to the B final. And in lane 7, Oscar McGuinness from Adelaide and the South Australian Institute.
Well, you mentioned the name Michael McRae there, right on the far side of the course. Michael started as a young fellow over at the Leichhardt Rowing Club unto Frank Thorne, and like some other young scullers that started their careers, they were encouraged to, if they wanted to pursue a career in the sport, they should look to some of the bigger, I guess, and we call them the elites over here, like Sydney University, to just scrape into the final of the men's under 23 lightweight scull, followed by Hodgson of the University of Queensland and McCarthy of Sydney Rowing Club.
Time 7:06.94, and so the first 4, as called by Barry, they'll go direct to the A final, which is 81, race 81 on the program, and the rest will go to the B final, which is race.
Well, a great name there, apart from we were talking about Tim McLaren and his association with Rusty Robinson, but another great name down there that's very familiar to all, Garrett. Nick Garrett came from Interstate and went across to the old Haberfield Rowing Club in those days and became the head coach there, and achieved. Australian selector said, "Oh, we'll let you go," but they were training hard up to about a month or so before the game, and they were going to go whether they were allowed to go or not. And good on you, Nick, the quiet man of rowing, Garrett.
A race in progress at the moment is the first heat of the championship women's elite lightweight single. Again, it's the first 4 to the A final, the remainder to the B. Tanielle Lynham in lane 1 from Corio Bay, Sophie Jarapatitis from UTS in 3, Georgia Mansoro from Sydney Uni and the National Institute in 4, Sarah Pound, UTS and the NTC in 5, Alice Arch, Melbourne University in 6, and Susanna Gravestock from Western Australia Rowing Club.
They were from, I think, along with Nesbitt and Amy James from the 2019 Australian Lightweight Quad with Pound, and let's hope they have great success in the Victoria Cup. Coming down here now, and Alice Archie from Melbourne University. That name rings a bell. I think she was the Australian Reserve lightweight in the World Championships that were held in Muir.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Lincoln. He's been playing a big part in coaching up there at Griffiths Uni, Surfers Paradise, and Alpha Young, of course, with Wallace Russell. So this is a good event. Very good event. The second heat of the Championship Women's Elite Lightweight Single. On your program, it's
Usually Wallace.
Well, I noticed the 2 girls there racing National Training Centre have got the Australian National Training Centre boats, and certainly Rowing Australia must have switched on those boats out there. I mean, they're great-looking sculls, aren't they?
Yeah, very nice equipment indeed.
Yeah. Well, there we have lane 5. That's Amy James from supported by the National Training Centre. She'll take first place. Second place will go to lane 4. That's Georgia Nesbitt from Ewan. Third place then will go to again Eve Muir. She doesn't get the big green boat. And the fourth place then will go to Wallace Russell from Sydney Uni. And fifth place then to Gemma Dane from Griffiths Uni Surfers Paradise. So right over there in lane 2. She'll be judged in fifth place. And sixth place then will be the Mercantile with Megan Hester coached by David Colvin and Bill Webster.
And our winning time 7:49.71. Again, first four there, as we mentioned, Amy James, Georgina Nesbitt, Megan Hester and Wallace Russell direct to the A final, and other scullers to the B final. Now, championship men's elite lightweight singles. Sponsor again is Pontoon Sports, and the same progress as for the women's event, 1 to 4 to the A final, others B final. In lane 2 from the Tamar Club, Oliver Marsden. In lane 3 from Canberra, Thomas Perry. Lane 4 from Toowong and the Queensland Institute. Championship events. I noted with interest that the Armidale School, who opening 5 years ago, entered 1 crew in the head of the river, entered 3 last year. For this regatta, they've entered 3 boys and for the first time a girls crew, because they went co-ed 2 years ago. And so they've got a full girls crew representing the Armidale.
That I've heard you say this before. They came out of what's the association with the school down here, the Armidale School? Is there an association with that?
Part of the GPS program.
But were they spawned from some sort of adjunct?
Oh no, the school was founded in the 1800s. In Armidale, yeah. It was a boys' school for all those years, of course, and now co-ed. As Canberra Boys Grammar has gone co-ed, but I'm not sure if entering girls' crews. Certainly competing, but I'm not sure in what category.
Well, on your programs, this is race 30 down here and through the halfway mark. It was Red Matthews in the lead, but he's had to forfeit that, and it's gone to Hamish Parry. Hamish Parry is racing out of lane 4 from Queensland, and he's now taken in over in the lead. Now Matthews is still hanging there with about 3/4 of a length, back quite a distance to Gray of Merle, and on top of Gray is James Kerr from the University of Western Australia. Then a length back to Tom Perry, about lengths then back to Brown of Sydney, and then right at the tail end it's Tamar from Tasmania, Oliver Marsden, and almost on the stern canvas of Brown, so it's pretty close racing at the stern end. So coming up to the line here now, it's Hamish Parry from Toowong out to take the win and move through to the final. Second place will be from lane number 5, that's James Kerr. Now this win.
Lane 5, Sean Murphy, Mossman and the State Institute. Lane 6, Mercantile, as Michael McNamara. In lane 7 from...
What depends on their performance today, and but they're up against one. We don't know the Banks leg from Mercantile. They're possibly in a similar position down there with looking at possible selection in their lightweight with Cup group. They're coming up here for the Australian Championships. But for race number 35, through the halfway mark, it was Sean Murphy from the 2 boys that we just made reference to in the New South Wales Penrith Cup Possibles. It was Sean's place, and he was followed by, well, I think you'd probably call it about a half a canvas, the stern canvas. Back in second place, Chambers, who's jumped from second place and or third place and moved up to be right on Murphy's tail. So these 2 boys will be having a bing bop battle, I think, right through to the finishing line. Murphy and Chambers. Back in third place, it was Banks. Very, very close to the 2 top performers there, and then about a 3/4 of a length, Patterson of Bucks, and then back to Clark of ANU, and then Michael McNamara, who Mercantile. That's not Michael McNamara who does the television show, is it?
I would very much doubt it.
Yeah, no, Michael McNamara, Mercantile there.
Barry, very impressed with Alex Patterson from Bucks on the grandstand side. He was languishing quite significantly in the first 500.
picked it right up now, and then he's in a position to challenge.
You're right, John. Yeah, he's right up with the other the two leaders that we've had, and I think they were the was that the two New South Wales Institute boys, Chambers and Murphy, and he is making them go a little bit harder out there. You're quite spot on. You got good eyesight, John.
On times, Barry, at times. I was saying it wasn't too good last Saturday for the girls' school regatta. I had trouble seeing.
Well, John, I did a great job last. John's referring to Roseville. I couldn't make that, and John stepped up. He usually does the boys' regattas, but he stepped up to take on the young ladies from Roseville. And all I can say is that thank you to Roseville, because you looked after him. And you're one of the treasures of New South Wales rowing, John, with what you've done.
Well, they gave me a good sausage sandwich and a can of Coke, so what more could one ask?
Gee whiz, John, you did well. You did well. And coming up here now, I think it's the New South Wales boys are managing to hang on. We're not being parochial here, but you can see the Mosman boy. Leon Chambers now is leaving the field and has just gone under coach Don McLaughlin, who's had a bit of success over there at Sydney Uni. 2 lengths of clear water now. Chambers leads, and he's going further away. Heavens above, he's really pushing. Not so hard working, but he knows that with 1, 2, 3, 4 to move through to the A final, he's there. 2 lengths have gone to 3 lengths of clear water, and second place will go to Sean Murphy from Mossman. Both of these boys, local boys, sponsored by the New South Wales Institute of Sport. And third place then will go to Banks, James Crouch, over there. And he'll take third place, and fourth place will go to lane 8, which is Bucks or Buckingham, as John said, from Tasmania. Alec Patterson will take fourth place, about 3 lengths of clear water. Then back to, well, he's not carrying the right lane number, but who is that? What's happened? The Mercantile bloke has come last. He must be the Australian National University, ACT. And I think he probably got 5th, and Mercantile got 6th. Well, now I think the judges are going to have to watch that closely.
And the winning time, 6:57.86.
6:57.86.
Barry, back into the big time now, the very big time. The first heat of the women's championship elite pair, and here we'll have our big names once again. There are 2 finals for this, an A final and a B, 1, 2, 3 and 4 to the A final. Now the lineup in lane 1, a composite, Rebecca Smith of Toowong and Nicole Constable from GPS. That's a bit strange. I'll look at that. Oh yeah, it's a composite of Griffith University Surface Paradise Toowong. In lane 2, Sydney, represented by Brianna Caputo and Kristen Luton. In lane 3, a West Australian and University of West Australian composite, Bronwyn Cox and Georgia Patton. In lane 4, Melbourne Uni and Hewen composite, Sarah Hoare from Hewen and Lucy Stefan from Melbourne Uni. In lane 5, Adelaide and Mercantile composite, Katrina Werry from Mercantile, Olympia Addersley from Adelaide. Lane 6, a UTS and Tamar composite, Siona Wilson from Tamar and Georgie Rowe from UTS. In lane 7, representing Banks, Maddie Carmen and Amelia Garley. In lane 8, representing the University of Queensland and the Institute, Eloise Parker and Kate Rowan. And in lane 9, that's the grandstand side, a West Australian Rowing Club and ANU composite, Kerry Nola from ANU and Davina Lefroy from Western Australia.
Well, what we're seeing here is the typical we saw with the men's single scull as the first races on this afternoon's program. 4 crews in the middle, all from the National Training Centre, and the selectors here have been very, very smart. They've changed. We did see these women who are located generally at the National Training Centre just across the way there at Penrith. Morrison tied up with McIntyre, and Popper with Stefan. That was first and second place in the small boats regatta that was held up here, and then Waring and Goodmar. We won't go through all the results, but they've mixed them up this time. They've got different partners, and Sarah Hoare and Lucy Stefan out there from Melbourne University, combined with Ewan from the National Training Centre in lane 4. In fact, they're both from the gold medal women's coxless 4 that raced at the last World Championships, where Australia did so well. The others they've been changed, and that we'll find the same thing happening in the second heat of the champion women's elite pair. So we're not going to worry too much about it, but they've all got Australian championships racing in the centre of the field there. We'll stick to what we see in the final 250 metres. And what a great race we have now coming down, and this is race 36 on your program. Race 36 saw the pair of Hoare and Stevens in the lead through 1,500 metres of 5:15. They were running second, a hot second at the 1,000 metres mark. They've moved up to take the lead. About a canvas behind them is the pair of Merry and Aldersley. A length back to Cox and Patton. Wilson Rowe about in 4th place back. That's the positions they had in the early stages of the race. It's back to Parker and Rowan, and then Smith and Constable from Griffith Uni Surface Paradise. Banks, the crew of Carmen and Garley, doing a good job to be right up there with these national training centres. They come up to the line now. As you can see, it's the green boats of the National Training Centre. Top Australian performance coming up here. It's lane 4, Melbourne Uni Composite. It's Sarah Hoare and Lucy Stefan in lane 4, taking the win by about a canvas. Back then to Adelaide Composite with Mercantile in second place. Third place across on the far side, the West Australian Composite combination with the West Australian University Cox and Patton for third. 4th place then I think will go to UTS combined with Tara. That's Wilson and Rowe, and they will take out 4th place. I've made a mistake. No, it's Rigney and Batiga got the 3rd place, and then no, it's right. Cox and Patton back to Wilson and Rowe got the 4th, and then Parker and Rowan from the University of Queensland. Smith and Constable combined to take out 6th place. They're on the far side of the course over there, and finally Banks with Carmen and Garley. So we got that right. And what was the time there, John?
7:01.17.
Congratulations. God, he looks like you. I was worried there for a time. Now we got the top 4 right, and 1, 2, 3, 4 moving through to the A final. That's the Melbourne University Composite crew, Adelaide Composite. So all the National Training Centre crews have got through. Boy, oh boy. I guess they're breathing a sigh of relief. But a top field there coming from on the far side, Griffith Uni and Sydney Rowing Club, and on this side, Banks, University of Queensland, and the West Australian Rowing Club Composite crew. So congratulations for lining up. By gee, you had some competition in the middle of the field. Great to see all those crews right from across, and the individuals racing in the women's elite pair as we move now to the second of the heats in race 37. Now race 37, you've got the crews there. Again, we see 4 crews from the National Training Centre there. I see the Tin Apple's name with Jacinda Edmonds. We'll go through them. The thing here, the Australian National University crew, have a look at the names there. Adair Ferguson and was racing in the 1980s. I think she even represented, or they tried to get into the 1980, I think it was. Adair Ferguson with Gillian Campbell, coached by an old mate of mine, Michael Lowry, and went across. Adair Ferguson had a young son or a young baby in arms, and The husband went and they travelled together, did the Europe to see whether they could get into the Australian cruise, but I don't think it was the time for that. But Adair Ferguson in her own right was the... and then we had Frenetic and Georgie Hall. This is the top field coming down here. You've got Tin Apple and Edmonds in lane 3. You've got Popper and McIntyre. Both those were in the, I think in the, geez, from memory, I think it was from the bronze. They won the women's 8 and the world champion lightweight singles. I think one was already in that. And the Coxlers 4, the gold medals, Kingslers 4, Rosie Popper. Molly Goodman, I think, was in that crew. Look, this is an Australian elite field coming down here. We'll stick to racing and right in the centre. As we saw for race 37 through the 1500 metre mark, it's Adelaide's with Morrison and Goodman in the lead. They're followed by Popeye in second place. Third place was Saunders and Gotch from Sydney University. Tin Apple and Edmonds were back at fourth at that time, and then followed below Rigney and Bettina back in sixth place. Seventh place with Wainwright and Denth, and the Australian National University with Ferguson and Tynan. But the big feature over on the far side, Adair Ferguson, well out of it, but we'll mention her name when she makes the finishing line. But coming up here now for a big win. You can see the various colours. The Adelaide Mercantile crew from lane number 5. They call them the Adelaide Composite crew, and they will take the win. That's Morrison and Goodman. Second, lane 4, this is Popper and McIntyre. Third place will go to Tin Apple and Edmonds. Place will go, I think that's to Saunders and Gotch from Sydney University. Commercial Swan River, Tin Apple and Edmonds. Saunders and Gotch, followed by Melbourne University with Frenetic and Howe. Back in 5th place, Sydney Uni combined with New South Wales Institute of Sport. Rigney and Bettina will be judged in 6th place.
Well, Barry, I suppose it's not surprising, given that 4 of those go straight to the A final. All 4 are members of the National Training Group.
Yes, that crew that the 4th plane 6, that's also National Training Centre. So that's quite right, John, as you said. They're all...
Well, you see virtually also now a revamp of the earlier sculling races, Barry, which we commented now got combined in the championship men's elite pair. The final race, 2 races on the program, the penultimate race, race 38, heat 1 of the championship men's elite pair, and progress as for the women's event, 1, 2, 3 and 4 to the A final, remained to the B final. Now in lane 2, we have Logan Brick and Miller Rowe from Cannes at the QAS. In lane 3, Composite Black Mountain Mercantile, Leanne Donald and Luke Letcher. In lane 4, Composite Adelaide Melbourne Uni, Joshua Booth and Alexander Hill. In lane 5, Sydney, Sam Hardy and Joshua Hicks. In lane 6, Tamar UTS Composite, Ben Coombs and Henry Yule. Lane 7, Osman and Sydney University Composite, Andrew Judge, Robert Black, and Sydney Universities in lane 8, represented by Lachlan Miles and Morgan Brooking.
Well, now there's on the schedule, the Championship Women's Elite pair start off at 4 o'clock. This race isn't due to start until 4:20 on the program, so there's been a bit of a break there. The crews have not yet started, so the but as you say, yeah, they've kept the best till last. Oh, I shouldn't put it that way, should I?
The best of the last 4 races.
Best of the last 4 races. Oh, what a fantastic program it's been today. Lovely shot there of the grandstand, and And what's there, and at this time, there's no one in the starting line, but
Barry, probably worth mentioning several of the races today have been sponsored by individual groups and companies, and we thank people very, very much indeed for that. The race just finished and the race to come are both sponsored by the Regatta shop, and we might just remind you that our Regatta program is available at the Regatta shop at the moment, so make sure you get your program. Also, Barry, one of the features, I think, of today's program is that all our races have been streamed live, so people can watch this top-class rowing at home on their computers or their television set. And from what I've seen, the stream looks to be very, very good indeed.
it's locally produced. I mean, I don't know whether people are aware of it, but Ace Communications, John Meeking's up here, and I suppose the overall umbrella and looking at what's going on is Mr. Crute, who has done a wonderful job with setting the programs, and I think even Rowing Australia in the last few years have been forced to adopt his programs as part of the entries and dealing with the programs. I mean, it's just, I think they tried to use the American system, but this is a system to be used. It was a bit political going back there a few years ago, but it just hastened slowly, and it's all reverted back to Simon's work. He does a great job on that sort of thing, and they work very well between them, himself and John Meekings.
But it's no doubt that we've seen, as you suggested, the communication system here just gradually improve and develop year by year, and I just wonder what's going to happen next year. We've got a fair step at the moment with our big visual coverage on the big screen, our streaming. It's been very, very good indeed.
Yeah, I don't know what the plans are for Rowing Australia. They generally bring in the big guns, and but they will use the equipment here. I'm sure they will use the equipment here in presentation that have been developed within New South Wales. But of course, everything else Rowing Australia do it their way, but they don't have the experience. And this is not a criticism. They don't have the experience that New South Wales officials have, that are running regattas every week. I think Rowing Australia, what do they run, about half a dozen regattas throughout the season?
Yeah, but all experienced boat race officials, of course.
Of course, yeah.
And an even bigger army of volunteers that we have here at the New South Wales Championships.
Well, it's one thing, the volunteers have turned up here for rowing New South Wales regattas. New South Wales people, they've done a great job over the years, and they did it, I think it was mainly New South Wales volunteers who were at the 2000 Olympics, which is a fantastic show in those days. The tents that have been starting to go up now, I would think that we might even see more tents going up there, but it's a great view from here, a lot of activities. But the course itself is magnificent, isn't it? It looks great. Yeah.
Very, very good. And Barry, we've commented several times that, in fact, conditions are perhaps better now than the 2000 Olympics, for which they were developed, in the sense that the trees are now getting a sense of maturity about them. The protection from wind is far better than it was 19, 20 years ago. So our facility is very good. And to capitalise on those comments, several other places have used this as a blueprint. They've actually developed facilities copying the plans for this group. That was particularly so in Tokyo, to a certain extent in London. So it set the scene for quality courses for rowing.
Well, the other big development up here, John, has been the development of adaptive rowing and sculling, and a couple of clubs. This is headquarters, Ricky.
Sorry, I had a very alternate offer.
Okay, now I was just going to say the big changes up here that we didn't see going back to the 2000 Olympics was the involvement of adaptive rowing, which is now on the same program as the senior A's, and a change of name down there, which a lot of people coming up here may not be familiar with. It's probably the same in many other states that have come up with, but here we have a dominant school with Presbyterian Ladies College over at Croydon, PLC Sydney, and Balmain Rowing Club, who have really developed that aspect of rowing, senior rowing, with adaptive rowing. They've competed worldwide. We've done very well. We have currently the world champion, Eric Horry.
For several years.
Yeah. But on the program that we'll be seeing tomorrow, we talk in terms of PR1, PR2, and PR. And in order it was called, you might recall, the last time we had the New South Wales Championships here, we called them arms and shoulders was the one category. The other one was trunk and arms, and the other one was leg, trunk and arms. And tomorrow at the appropriate time we will explain how that changed, but we're going to see some great competitors over the next 2 days in the adaptive rowing, and full marks to those people from Balmain Rowing Club, Barbara Ramjan, who's a bait race official, and Craig, who have done wonders in getting that interest and quality into the people.
Barry, it's fair to say that rowing has incorporated what we might call our adaptive arrow rowing probably better than most other sports. So the last World Championship was a good event. It was totally integrated in the Regatta program, whereas still with the Olympics, they're on separate events.
Yes. Well, the other big development here in New South Wales is, and I assume that it's the same in other states, is the Pathway program. And the key people in that have been Lizzie Chapman from the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and AB, as we call him, from the New South Wales Rowing. And the Pathways program has been developed in 2 areas. Perhaps many of you that come from interstate might remember the old programs called the Talented Athlete program and the Talent Identification program. And there's been some wonderful occasions down here, various clubs hosting this joint New South Wales Institute and the clubs involved with the loan of equipment. And it's been very, very successful. If you have a chance on the website, I don't know whether they've taken off, but you'll see the last of the events. It might have been over at Sydney Rowing Club with the crews. They've had a number of women's crews, number of boys' crews. I think there have been more girls than boys have joined in. And the talent has been fantastic. And these are the young people who are vying to see perhaps their, I won't say patriotic to say that, but when they see the National Training Centre representatives here, doesn't it give them some enthusiasm?
It does indeed, Barry. Barry, talking about the training centre, the crews are lining up now at the start for the ultimate event on our program. It's the first heat of the men's championship elite pair, and we ran through them a little earlier. The names are all big guns in men rowing in Australia, and of course that will be echoed in the final race of today's program, race 39, the second heat of this event. But Barry, we can only comment and repeat what we've said previously, that it's been quite, I think, an accomplishment to get all these top men and women rowers on this program, all out of the national training group.
Well, we know of Ian Wright, the coaches of those people that you're talking about, Mark Prater, and young Andrew Randell, that sort of was coaching at school, but I think he also did a bit of work over at Andrew Randell at Drummoyne Rowing Club. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Andrew might have had a bit to do with the New Zealand, Rusty Robinson too, when he was over here, Andrew Randell, but he's gone into bigger and better things. When you see the names like Ian Wright, Mark Prater and Andrew Randell as key coaches with the National Training Centre crews, by gee, big things are in hand now for the next lot of international events to be held in 2019. That includes juniors as well. Well, what's going on down to the start, John? Can you see?
The race is underway. The first heat of the Championship Men's Elite there up on the screen at the moment, both in the stream and not out. We can pick up three of the crews there, one in the foreground, of course, lining up for the second of our heats, which will be starting in just a few minutes' time.
Well, as you can see, we're now looking at a side view that you can see looking at the side of the crew. Selectors over there on the far side in their vans, but through that first 500 it was Tamar combined with UTS, Adelaide with Melbourne University about 0.2 of a second behind. This is close racing. Sydney Rowing Club there, Back Mountain combined with Mercantile Black in 4th place, the Can Crew back in 5th, and Mossman. It's just so close as they move up through that first 500 metres. Mossman and Sydney University combined. Just looking to see and identify with the National Training Centre crews. I think of those 6 or 7 that we mentioned, there's at least 4 right up there with the rest of the crews. So they move through the first 500. We await now the results from the computer as to what the UTS crew. Now that was a composite crew from Ben Coombs is from UTS and Henry Ewell's Tamar. Now that was a spectacular start from them in the race, because not sponsored by the National Training Centre, or we won't call them privateers, but it's a magnificent performance from them in the opening stage of that event. The lead, Coombs from UTS and Henry Ewell, and Brendan Long as the coach of that combination, and he'd have to take credit for. We'll now be moving up now to the 1,000 metre mark in race number 38. It's Adelaide and Melbourne Uni. It was too good to be true. Tamar and the UTS now back in 2nd place, but it's the crew from lane 4 that are now leading. Adelaide Composite crew. Adelaide Composite with Melbourne University. Josh Booth from Melbourne University. Alex Hill from Adelaide. And as you can see, they're in 1st place. That pushed Tamar UTS back to 3rd. Sydney Rowing Club still hanging in there. They're Sam Hardy and Josh Hicks. Hicks in the crew, you'd expect Sydney to be there. And Black Mountain and Mercantile. Now with Black Mountain and Mercantile back in 4th, as you can imagine, Liam Donald from Mercantile, but it's Luke Letcher from the Black Mountain Rowing Club. And that's one of the NTC crews back in 4th place. The Queensland Privateers up there in 4th and 5th place. Mossman and Sydney University. One of the National Training Centre still back in 6th place, and Sydney University number 2 crew back in the final position. That's with Lachlan Miles and Morgan Brooking and coach Donald McLaughlin hanging on by his fingernails to see how they perform against the elites of Australian rowing.
And as we speak, the breeze is lifting once again, Barry, so I'm expecting a little assistance with the timing at the end of this race.
Well, John, when looking down here from the head race that we see, and on your screen, you can see there's a bit of a difference looking from the side camera, but looking from head on, all those crews look to be up together. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to move through to the A final, and you wouldn't be able to pick the top 4 from where we're sitting, John, have we?
No.
From the 1,500 metre mark, it was the Adelaide Melbourne University composite crew. That's Booth and Alex Hill, a top crew. They've gone through that in 4:45. Second was Sydney Rowing Club, who were hanging in there and doing an extremely good job. Black Mountain and Mercantile back in 3rd, and Tamar and UTS, who were the early race leaders, back in 4th at this stage, but they're still in it. And close racing coming up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from this side, and that's the Adelaide composite crew of Booth and Hill. They're the race leaders at the present moment. Right in the centre, in the dark coloured boats, right up round about 36, 37 strokes per minute as we look on their left-hand side. That's the next crew. That's the Sydney National Training Centre crew of Hardy and Hicks. It's close racing, only about a half a length between those 2 leading crews. Look at 3rd, a great race going for 3rd with the crew from Tamar Composite, and on the far side of the course that looks like Adelaide Composite with Booth. I think it's Donald and Letcher combined Black Mountain Composite crew with Mercantile. They come up to the line, and it's Donnell and Letcher starting to make a move now on the rest of the field, but coming up here now, so close racing. I think it's Booth and Hill from lane 4, hanging grimly on there by a length, and closing the gap is Hardy and Hicks from Sydney Rowing Club. They're coming up there 3/4 of a length now, but it's Adelaide Composite Crew will take the win, half a length only, and it's lane 5 Sydney. Hardy and Hicks will take second place. Third place then will go to Black Mountain Composite with Donnell and Letcher. They've done it. They got a third. Fourth place then will go to, I think that's Tamar Composite, and fifth place then Mossman and UTS, part of that National Training Centre crew. They'll be judged in fifth place. I think we got that right, fifth place. Yeah. And that's the one. And sixth place will go to Cannes from Queensland and the Academy of Sport, Ulrich and Rowe. And then finally seventh place, Sydney University with Miles and Brooking. Close and exciting racing. Second last race on the day's program. John.
6:23.67. Very good race, and I take me hat off then to that Tamar Composite. Neither were included in the national training group. But they rode very in fact, Harry Yule did the similar thing in his sculling race earlier, got a fourth place and went to the A final, and that was an excellent effort. But I also congratulate the representatives from Cannes Rowing Club. To enter against that competition is a bit daunting, but Heat 2 is underway, and the Sydney University, represented by Marcus Britt and Will O'Shaughnessy, Mercantile in Sydney, Angus Moore and Angus Whitcomb, Melbourne Uni and Sydney Uni, Nicholas Purnell and Simon Keenan, UTS and Sydney, Spencer Turren and Tim Masters, Sydney and University and UTS, James Midway and Jack O'Brien, and in lane 7 it's Nathan Bowden from Sydney, Northrop from Mercantile, and Swan River Composite, Swan River representative crew, Pat and Rowan James on the grandstand side.
Well, they've now moved past the second line of flags down there, so they've gone through the halfway mark, and it looks like we have the UTS and Composite crew from Sydney. That's Turren and Tim Masters from the UTS, both I think out of the silver medal winning 8, but they're right in the centre, and they've done a great job in, but it's only a fraction of a second back to Sydney University number 1. But that's the UTS Composite crew of Spencer Chirun and Tim Masters racing out of, I think that's lane 5. A good side view of the crews and the scullers, or the pair oars coming up there. Very, very close racing, but I think it was the crew from lane 5, that's Turren and Masters, that led at the 1,000 metre mark. This is the second heat now, the championship men's elite pair, and I think that is the crew that you can see in the lead on this side. Spencer Turren from Sydney Rowing Club, the colours there, and in the colours of UTS with Tim Masters, and they lead by about a length and a half, as you can see. And second place is the Melbourne crew, Melbourne Uni and Sydney Uni combined. Well, it's lovely to see, and it would be John Bolby would be very happy with that combination, wouldn't he? Melbourne and Sydney Composite crews racing. Sydney University again with Sydney University combined a composite with, I think that's with Medway and O'Brien. So Medway starting to have a good run here. And third place, Sydney University in its own right. That's the Sydney University number 1 crew with Marcus Britt and O'Shaughnessy back in fourth place. And it's about 5 seconds you could throw in a blanket right over the top of those top 4 crews. And back in fifth place is Mercantile combined with Sydney. All 2 crews there in 5th and 6th place. And then finally in 7th place at the 1,500 metre mark, it was Swan River with Patrick Bohr, Rowan James, and coached by Beer and Kempton. So it's close racing, as you can see coming up here. The race leader, fourth from this side, that's the UTS Composite crew of Turren and Masters. Right in the centre, you can see the colours of the clubs down there on their immediate right. That's the Melbourne University Composite crew of Purnell and Keenan. And by gee, a good race going on for second, because on their left-hand side, the Sydney University Composite crew, that's James Medway and Jack O'Brien from Sydney University Boat Club on this side of the course under pressure. What a great job they've done. Medway right up there with them in third place. First place is going to go to Turin and Masters, the combined UTS composite crew. They'll take out first place. Second place on their right, Melbourne University composite for second. And third place, a great row coming from Medway and Jack O'Brien. They're also in that group, but great to see Medway back amongst the top rowers here at the International Regatta Centre. Back in fourth, Mercantile Sydney combined, Sydney University in fifth place, Mercantile Sydney back in second place composite, and finally seventh place has gone to Swan River. Absolutely magnificent racing in the last two events. The two heats of the champion men's elite pair, the top four moving through to the A final, the remainder going through to the big final, and that'll be on, I would imagine, tomorrow.
And the time for that final race of the day, 6:24.68. So an interesting race there indeed. 1, 2, 3 and 4 to the A final. All others go to the B final.
John, racing tomorrow. John, what time does it and what time does it start tomorrow?
I'm pretty sure it's 8 o'clock start.
Oh, I think is it 7:45? I don't know. 7:45.
Well, we'll be here bright and early too.
Yeah, I haven't got the program for tomorrow.
No, neither have I as yet.
But I check your programs anyway for the start. John, it's been a magnificent day's racing.
Yeah, an excellent day's racing, and I would anticipate that our next 2 days are going to be equally as enthralling as today's. And whether you're watching on the stream at home or out here, it's going to be a good day.
Well, it's great. I have never seen a New South Wales Championship result like this before, with so many from the national training centres, both boys and girls, and the spectacular times that we saw this morning, but also the other races, the under 19, under 21. I think the change of conditions produced faster times, but no, it was great racing, and a wonderful effort on the part of the boat race officials, finishing on time. The next 2 days, John, it's going to be a late finish. I think we're up around about 5:30.
Yes, it is indeed. Yes, I'm pleased to see. I can congratulate my grandson. At least he's qualified for the A final, so that's rather good. But just a reminder that the programs are available from the Regatta shop. We'll be able to give a good rundown tomorrow on all our sponsors. We couldn't run a regatta like this without good sponsorship, so we thank them very, very much indeed. But have a wander around. I can ask all the people out here. There are a range of displays, and from supporting groups and from those involved with the technical side of rowing and rowing equipment. It's worthwhile just looking at the equipment.
And you've done very well with the Go Row liniment.
Oh yes, indeed. I find it very good. I'd never heard of it until they came to our regattas, I think last year, and I have found it quite superb, and I will certainly get some more while I'm here to take home to treat my advanced state of arthritis, which happens with age, Barry. Well, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen, those who've been here at the regatta, those who've been watching the streaming. We look forward to a very, very good day tomorrow. We thank all those who helped make the regatta a success, and we'll see you early in the morning. Bye.